Okay, please be seated, everybody. Back on record. Call your next witness, Mr. Kalichuk.
Christian Ward.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you will give in this case now will be the truth, the whole truth?
I swear.
Please state your full name, please spell your first and last name.
Christian Everly Ward, Christian Ward.
Your occupation?
Fuel station associate at Fred Meyer Fuel Station in Palmer.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
How long have you lived in the Palmer area?
About all my life. I lived in Virginia for about 2 years when I was 15 or 16.
And how long have you worked at Fred Meyer?
Oh, since February 2017.
It's at the same job that you've described?
Before, I think about 2 or 3 months ago, I just started as a fuel associate, but before that I was a home associate.
Let me turn your attention to a name, Eric Almendinger. Are you familiar with that person?
Yes, sir.
How long have you known Eric Almendinger?
Since I was 4 or 5.
And tell me, how did you get to know Eric Almendinger?
Well, he was my neighbor. So we just played together as kids and grew up together essentially, so.
And do you still live in that area?
I do.
And where is your house in relation to Eric Almendinger's house?
Right across the street.
And the street name?
SD Drive.
SD Drive. And did you go over his house often?
More so often when we were growing up, but after the military academy, I didn't go over there much, no.
Meaning you went to the military academy?
Yes, sir.
And you're familiar with the layout of his house?
Yes, sir.
Let me turn your attention to November, specifically November 13th of 2016. Do you remember going to his house on that day?
Yes, sir.
And we have the calendar there. It's a Sunday, if you don't remember. Do you remember it being a Sunday?
I don't remember it for the date, just the events that happened on that day.
About what time do you think you got to his house?
I don't know the exact time, but I know it was still daylight, or it was daylight outside.
And did you have any communication with him before you went over or not, or you just stopped by?
I just texted him, said, hey, you home? I'm gonna come over, hang out. That was it.
And what were you guys gonna do?
Just hang out in the basement living area, watch movies. I don't remember what all we did there.
And do you remember whether it was dark or light out when you first got to the house?
When I first got to the house, it was light out.
And tell me who was at the house when you got there?
When I got there initially, it was Eric and his dad, and I'm sure his grandma, but she's usually up in her room, so I didn't see her.
And his dad's name, if you can give us that?
Rodney Almendinger,
And his grandmother's name? Yeah.
Myler Almendinger.
And you're familiar with both those people from being their neighbor through the years?
Yes, sir.
You were gonna hang out downstairs with Eric Almendinger?
Yes, sir.
And you had been downstairs before?
Yes, sir.
And what was the plan? What were you guys gonna do?
Just hang out. We didn't really have a plan, just talk, watch movies, whatever we were gonna do.
And how long were you intending to stay there?
Probably about till nighttime at least. I mean, just till I got tired and wanted to go home.
And I'm assuming you came on foot since you live across the street, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And was anybody else there before you got there, when you got there?
No, not, just, when I got there, it was just Eric and Rodney, and I'm assuming Myler, but I don't know for sure.
And let me ask some questions about the property. Are you familiar with that trailer they had on the property?
Yeah.
Did you ever hang out there with Eric?
Yeah, we'd go out there sometimes, yeah.
Right. And was it pretty typical for younger people to hang out in that trailer?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so.
And what kind of things would people do in the trailer when you were there?
I know they had an Xbox and a TV in there. That's about all I can recall from the trailer.
All right, So let's keep going with November 13th. You got there, what did you say to Eric? What did he say to you? What did you start doing?
When I first got there,
Yeah.
just, I don't recall exactly. I mean, it was 2 years ago, so.
Right, right.
But just, hey, how you doing? Just talked, see how we're doing, you know. Don't recall much else but that.
And then what do you remember actually doing?
See, it's hard for me to recall. I mean, watch TV. I know we watched TV for a bit. That's it.
Talked, watched TV?
Yeah.
Did you have a phone or what did you have?
I have my phone on me, yeah.
And did Eric Almendinger have any electronic device that day?
I know he had a tablet, I believe, yeah.
And was that his, like, basically his phone, his communication device in November 2016?
Yes, sir.
And so when you went there, do you know if there was any drinking or marijuana smoking
Not that I can remember.
or, did there come a time when somebody else got there?
Yeah, David Evans showed up.
And are you familiar with David Evans?
Yeah, I know him. Well,
How do you know him?
Through Eric Almendinger. They would be hanging out, and I'd go over there and hang out with them.
And were you aware that David Evans had been living there for a little bit before November 13th or not?
Yeah, I knew that.
How were you aware of that?
When I was there, I mean, Rodney and David Evans, when he got there, were fighting, and he had been gone for 5 or 6 days or so, and he yelled at him, like, if you're gonna be living here, you can't be disappearing for 5 or 6 days, and so that's how I kind of put it together.
Right. But you knew David Evans from even before that, you're saying? As Eric Almendinger's friend?
I don't know about before I went to the military academy, but at least after, I knew for sure.
So kind of give me a time frame. When did you go to the military academy?
I went in March of 2016 and got out August 28th of 2016.
And where's that located? Is that in Anchorage?
That is, it's on J-Bear.
And you're saying you met David Evans after that or before that? Just to give us a time frame.
I think maybe before that, but I know I've seen him a lot more after that.
And were you friends with David Evans?
No, sir.
Acquaintances?
No, sir.
No? Just ran into him at Eric Almendinger's house on occasion, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But you met him through Eric Almendinger, correct?
Yes, sir.
So tell us, he got there eventually, you noticed that he was in the house, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you know whether he drove there or walked there? Did you know anything about how he got to Eric Almendinger's?
Well, I know after the fact, I heard them say that David Grunwald had dropped him off.
It is hearsay.
All right, I was asking, like, did you personally see how he got there?
Oh, no, sir.
And you overheard a discussion between David Evans and Ronnie Almendinger?
Oh, yes, yes.
All right. And the gist of it was what, David was begging to come back into the household?
Well, I'm not sure about begging to come back in, but he was yelling at him for being gone for 5 days. That's all I heard.
Rodney was yelling at David?
Sorry, yes.
Yeah. Okay. And was David responding to the yelling?
I don't remember much of him responding, but I do remember Eric chiming in and telling his dad to stop yelling at him and kind of stop getting on his case about it.
And how well do you know Rodney?
I've known him my whole life.
He can be on the loud side on occasion?
Yes, sir.
Now, did the grandmother, did Myler eventually get involved in these discussions about whether David should remain or not?
Not that I recall, no.
Now, did you stay or did you leave shortly thereafter?
So I left pretty shortly after that argument. I got really uncomfortable by how loud he was being and how much he was cussing, and so I left.
And that was the sole reason why you left?
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you some questions about some other people. This defendant, Dominic Johnson, did you know him before November 13th of 2016?
No, sir.
Did you know Devin Peterson
I have met him a few times.
at Eric's place?
Yeah, and also at the military academy, I would see him usually in trouble, sitting on a bench alone, usually in trouble with the cadre there.
He was at the military academy with you?
In the beginning.
I'm kidding. Austin Barrett, did you know him?
No, I don't recall that name.
Bradley Renfro, did you know him?
I remember meeting him once after the military academy.
And was it through Eric Almendinger also?
Yes, sir.
And you say it was very, very limited contact with Bradley Renfro?
Yes, sir.
Maybe one time, you said?
Yeah, maybe one time, yeah.
Do you remember whether Eric Almendinger was using his tablet when you were there?
Yeah, he's used it when I've been there.
I'm talking about the 13th.
Oh, yes, yeah, I believe so.
And now, were you looking at what he was doing on his tablet or not?
No, I didn't get in his personal business like that, no, sir.
And would you say, as opposed, you said you were only an acquaintance of David Evans, right? Would you say that you were friends with Eric Almendinger?
Yes, sir.
Now, during the time that you knew him, did he display some signs that he thought he was in a gang?
Objection.
Again, that was already ruled upon by the court.
Overruled based upon my prior.
Thank you. Did Eric act like a gang member?
I might object
On
to that
occasion.
too, because can we approach on that? Can we look one, before we ask that question,
Sure.
just one other thing.
Did you ever see Eric Almendinger doing this sign?
Yes, sir.
Did you know what that meant or not?
I knew what that meant, yes, sir.
What did that mean to
Uh,
you?
Gang sign for the Crip gang?
And did you know much about the Crips or not?
No, hardly.
Did you ever see Eric Almendinger wearing blue clothing?
Blue bandana and
Yeah.
blue sweatshirts, I believe, yeah.
Was that his typical outfit?
Go ahead and subject to this under relevance.
Well, I think we already got a ruling on this. Blue is associated with the Crip gang.
I'll give you a little leeway, but go ahead.
But this isn't about my client.
It's not, but we have to show if it's an accomplice liability case.
Well, I think my ruling's pretty clear that it is an accomplice liability case, so information regarding the 4 or 3 other co-defendants in this aspect can come forward, so go ahead.
You said you saw Eric wearing blue, correct?
Yes, sir.
And specifically a blue bandana, correct?
Yes, sir.
Where did you see, like, where was he wearing the bandana?
I know I've seen it on his head. Yeah, that's mainly where I remember it being.
All right, and did you hear him talking about the Crips?
Objection, hearsay.
It's not for the truth of the matter, sort of, it's like, it shows that he wanted to be part of the Crips, which was already ruled on by the court.
I need to come forward.
When you had contact with Eric Almendinger, did he personally express to you that he had an interest in the Crips?
Objection.
Objection noted, go ahead.
He didn't really talk about that stuff with me.
Okay. But what did you observe from his conduct that related to the Crips?
Objection.
Overruled, go ahead, but
That he, I mean, I saw it on his like Instagram and Snapchat that he would say,
Well, I object to that, because that's going to hearsay.
It's not hearsay. It's to show that Eric Almendinger had an interest in the Crips.
overruled, go ahead.
that he had, not really specifically that he had an interest, just Crip-related things on there.
Okay. Like Crip signs?
I mean, like you said, the C and I guess the bandana and the blue heart emoji I saw on there,
Okay.
just things like that.
And the blue bandana, was that a regular piece of his clothing
Yeah,
almost all the time?
almost all the time, if not all the time.
All right. And you yourself, did you subscribe to any of that as far as you doing the C sign or you wearing the blue clothing?
No, sir.
You wearing a blue bandana?
No, sir.
And also as to Eric Almendinger, did you know how old he was on November 13th?
On November 13th, so 17 about, he should be?
And did you ever observe him with any firearms?
Yes, sir.
What type of firearm did you observe him with?
I know it was a Ruger, probably 40 caliber or 45 caliber. I believe silver or dark grayish. I've seen him with that one, yes.
And was that on the 13th of November or before that?
I'm not sure about specifically on the 13th, but I know he's shown it to me before that at least.
Showing you State's Exhibit number 3. Does that look familiar?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I don't expect you to say that you're sure this is the exact same gun, but
Right.
Does that appear to be the gun that you saw
Yeah.
Eric Almendinger have?
Yes, sir. It looks pretty similar to it, if not exactly like it.
How many times did you see this gun in Eric Almendinger's possession?
I'd say about 2 or 3 times.
And when you saw it in his possession, what was he doing with this pistol?
Usually just messing with it, racking it back, and looking at it.
Did he carry it on his, have you ever seen him carry it on his person?
So, yes, sir. He either pulled it out from the back of his pants or the front of it. I don't recall exactly, but I know it was in the waistline.
And when you're talking about this, about seeing him with this Ruger, was this at his house or was it elsewhere?
It was at his house.
Now, I asked you about some other people. Did you see other people handling this gun at the Almendinger house?
No, sir.
Did you ever handle it?
I believe, yeah, I picked it up once or twice.
And when you, on those occasions, how many times, you said 2 or 3 times you saw him with this gun?
Yes, sir.
When you saw him with this gun, were you aware of whether this gun was loaded or unloaded when it was in Eric Almendinger's possession?
I can't remember specifically, so I couldn't tell you.
Let me ask a more specific question.
Sure.
You mentioned that on occasion he would rack the slide, correct?
Oh, yes, sir.
Did you ever see any rounds coming out of the ejection port when he was racking the slide?
I can't recall.
Turning your attention to State's proposed exhibit number 42,
Hmm.
do you recognize this photograph or not?
No, sir.
Second question, do you recognize the person in this photograph?
Yes, sir, Eric Almendinger.
And do you recognize the location of this photograph?
His bedroom in the basement of the house.
And do you recognize the item that he's holding in this photograph?
Yes, sir.
And what is the item that he's holding?
It's a Ruger pistol.
And when you said that you saw him with the pistol on those prior occasions, was it in the same room?
No, sir, it's in the trailer. I remember it being in the trailer, yes, sir.
Each time you saw him with the pistol, it was in the trailer?
Yes, sir.
And on those times when you saw the pistol, did he always produce it from his body?
In the time that I can remember, he produced it from his back of the waist.
And do you know whether he had a holster or he just had it tucked into his pants when he pulled it out of his pants?
I didn't see any holster.
And so did you see this firearm on November 13th, 2016?
I don't believe so, no, sir.
Now, you told the jury that, when I asked you what type of gun he had, you said with specificity that it was a Ruger, right?
Yes, sir.
So let me ask you, how did you know it was a Ruger? Do you have some knowledge of guns?
Yes, sir. I own quite a few guns. I myself have the 9mm version of that one, the Ruger P85, and so I knew it was a higher caliber than mine.
If I could have a minute? Did you ever tell Eric Almendinger to cut out the gang signs and not wear? Did you ever give him any advice relating to the things you told us here during your testimony that you observed?
Objection.
Overruled, go ahead.
I maybe gestured once or twice that it wasn't for me, but I couldn't tell him what to do. I mean, there was no telling him what to do with his life, so there was not much I could do.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Morning.
How are you doing today, Mr. Ward?
Just fine, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. How old are you again?
19, sir.
19. And how many years was Eric younger than you?
About one.
About 1 year? Okay. And you went to the Military Youth Academy, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I missed the date. You said you started there in March of 2016, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And when were you done there?
On August 28th of 2016.
August 28th,
Yes, sir.
2016. Thank you. And you used to go over to Eric's house before you went to the Military Youth Academy quite a bit, is that right?
Yes, sir.
How frequently were you over there?
Oh, we were pretty good friends just about every day.
Okay. So before March 2016, you were there almost on a daily basis?
Yeah.
So you had a pretty good idea who was coming and going from the house, is that right?
No, not too much. I mean, when I went over there, it was just me and Eric hanging out.
Okay, so you guys hung out a lot up until Military Youth Academy, so.
He and his brother and I, yes, sir.
Okay. And he has an older brother, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is this brother older than you or younger than you?
Older than me.
Okay. And his brother actually lived in the trailer for a while, is that right?
I'm not too sure.
Okay. But you used to go there on a daily basis?
Just about.
Okay. When you were done with the Military Youth Academy, how often were you going over there?
Maybe once every other week.
Okay, so once every other week?
Yeah.
And when you went over there every other week, you never saw Dominic Johnson there, did you?
No, sir.
You never met Dominic Johnson before?
No, sir.
You don't really know anything about Dominic Johnson, do you?
No, sir.
Okay. Did you ever see Devin Peterson over there?
I would say about 3 or 4 times, maybe.
3 or 4 times?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever see David Grunwald over there before?
No, sir.
How many times did you see David Evans there?
Evans?
Yeah.
4 or 5 times, I would say.
And was that, when you saw him over there, was that after you're done with the Military Youth Academy?
Yes, sir.
And you were aware that he was living there for some time?
After I heard the argument with him and Rodney, yes, sir.
Okay. So you just sort of heard the argument, and that's how you became aware of it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But you'd seen him over there before?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that night the night of November 13th, when that argument happened, you got uncomfortable, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And after you got uncomfortable, you just decided to leave, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, do you remember what time that happened at?
I don't remember the specific time, but I know it was just turning to dark, so it was a little bit light outside.
Just turning to dark, okay.
Yes, sir.
And you got there when it was still white, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And you really didn't have any plan when you got there, is that right?
No, sir.
That was pretty typical, right?
Yeah.
You guys didn't plan out your days and map out your days?
Yes, sir.
Things that pretty random, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Other than saying, hey, I might come over,
Right, yes.
you might watch a movie,
Yes, sir.
you might play video games.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys really didn't plan things hard and fast, did you?
No, sir.
And Eric didn't really plan things hard and fast, did he?
No, not that I know.
And you knew him pretty well.
Yeah.
The firearm, you saw Eric with that, the gun that's in front of you is the gun you believe was Eric's, is that right?
Yes, sir, I believe so.
Okay. I don't have any other questions, thank you.
Follow up?
So Mr. Stoller asked you some things about when you left. Did you see any other people when you left?
Oh, yes, sir. Before I left, I had gone out to the garage, because I believe Eric either led me out there or somebody told me that he was out there. And I saw, it was dark, the garage door was shut. I saw maybe 3 or 4 bodies. I didn't see any faces, but I know they were young males. And then shortly, about 5 minutes later, I just said, I'm leaving, goodbye, because I got pretty uncomfortable with the situation there, too.
All right. With the situation in the house, did you just feel that was a family matter and that's why you were uncomfortable?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But then you said Eric Almendinger led you outside?
Yes, sir. Or he was already out there, I don't recall.
All right. And you were going to go back to your house, right?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
And where did you see these 3 or 4
In the,
people?
in the new garage.
And it was dark outside?
It was, like I said, just turning to dark, so it was a little light outside, just barely light.
And the new garage has a big door, correct?
Yes, sir.
And did you see him through the big door, or did you see him through some other door?
I was led inside of the garage, so I saw them in there.
Who led you inside the garage?
I believe it was either Eric that led me in there, or somebody told me Eric was in there, so it might have been David Evans, but either one way or another, I ended up in there. And after 5 minutes, I said goodbye.
Okay, so you don't remember that exactly either, Eric led, but my question is, why would Eric Almendinger lead you into the garage if you were gonna go home?
I don't know that myself. I was pretty confused.
So, but you're sure you went to the garage, right?
I'm fairly certain, yes, sir.
And did you go in through the man door?
The not the big door,
Right.
but the man door.
And was there any kind of light in the garage, or was it dark in the garage?
The lights were turned off.
And how were you able to see the silhouettes of the people?
Just by the moonlight mostly, or the dimming sunlight, I could see, because there's windows in the garage there, so I could see just their bodies, the silhouettes mostly.
And do you remember whether they have one of those lights that comes on automatically on the outside?
I don't
By the-
remember.
And can you tell us anything more about what these people were doing in the garage, or not?
They were just standing out in there.
But you didn't see enough to recognize who they were?
No, sir.
And you really can't tell us whether it was 3 or whether it was 4 people?
I cannot, no, sir.
And the part you're not sure about, just to clarify it, are you sure whether Eric Almendinger was in the garage or not?
I'm certain he was.
So, all right. So he was in a place where you were able to recognize him as Eric Almendinger?
Yeah, I've known him for so long, I could recognize him about anywhere in any situation.
And then the part you're not sure of is whether David Evans led you to the garage?
Yeah, I believe he was in the kitchen at the time, so I don't think he did. I think he told me that Eric was out there.
All right, so then the question becomes, again, do you remember oh, you went there to say bye to Eric? Is that what it was?
That's what it was, yes, sir.
And you can't tell us anything else about what the people were doing in the garage, other than you saw at least 3, maybe 4 people in addition to Eric, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you smell any particular smell like marijuana smoke?
No, sir.
And then did you continue to associate with Eric or be friends with them after November 13th?
I know, after the police had searched his house, he had come over for dinner with his dad and his grandma had come over, and they just kind of waited at our house until the police had left.
And then after that, did you see him later also or not?
I don't recall.
And you think David Evans was in the kitchen when you went to the garage?
When I think
Now-
back on it.
Okay, now you've had a chance to think about it a little bit during this questioning. I know it was 2 years ago.
Yes, sir.
You believe that David Evans was not in the garage,
Yes, sir.
that he was in the house?
In the kitchen, I believe, yes, sir.
Right. But you definitely had contact with Eric Almendinger in the garage.
Yes, sir.
And let me ask you, as far as location, was Eric Almendinger closer to the door, and that's why you saw his face, versus the other people being further away, or what can you tell us about that?
So it was kind of in a circle they were, and yeah, Eric was on the side of the circle anyway, that the light could shine through and I could just recognize him through that. Yes, sir.
And do you remember whether it was warm in the garage, whether it was heat in the garage, or whether it was cold in the garage?
It was pretty cold. I don't believe they had electricity in the garage at the time.
And did you make it a point to try to see who was in the garage as far as other than Eric, or not?
No, sir.
So was it pretty quick? Would you just say a matter of seconds?
Minutes, maybe 2 or 3, maybe it felt longer, but it was around that.
And what do you think you said to Eric?
I just said, all right, goodbye, essentially, I'm going home now.
Did he respond at all, or not?
He just said, oh, why? And I essentially said, because this is weird, and I just left.
Were you referring to what was happening in the house, or were you referring to what was happening in the garage?
A little of both.
And what was weird about, in your perception, what was weird about the garage? What was happening in the garage?
Just the fact that a group of people were just standing in there in silence kind of tipped me off that something weird was happening then.
And do you remember perchance whether the tarp was on the camper trailer or not? I don't know if you glanced that way or not.
I don't recall.
You know which camper trailer I'm talking about, right?
Yes, sir.
Was the place where the camper trailer was on the Almendinger property, was it pretty close to that new garage?
I can't remember if it was on the right side or the left side at the time, but I know it was generally close to the garage. I just didn't happen to glance at it.
And I'm asking, was it within sight of the new garage?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
And when you're talking about the new garage, so we understand, you're talking about the big new garage, because apparently there was 2, the big new garage and there was an ATV garage or something. Are you talking about the big garage with the big overhead door?
Yes, sir.
Before you saw those guys in the garage, did Eric ever give you an indication that anybody else was on the property?
No, sir.
All right, thank you.
You cross?
Did you get the sense that Rodney wanted a whole lot of people at the house that night?
Oh, no, sir, not at all.
And he was upset with David Evans, is that right?
Yes, sir.
He was in the process of kicking him out of the house?
I'm not sure if he was in the process of kicking him out. I just know he was yelling at him pretty bad.
He definitely didn't want people around, though.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Thanks.
All right, sir, you can step down. I think they're completed. Do you have your next witness, Mr. Galcheck?
Yes, we do.
Yes, Judge, the state will call Angela Dicus.
Ms. Howard?
Ma'am, please stand and raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this case now before this court is the truth and the whole truth? Yes. Please be seated. Please state your full name and spell your first and last name.
Angela Dicus, Angeladicus,
Your current occupation.
unemployed.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Ms. Dicus.
Good morning.
Do you currently reside in the valley?
Yes,
How long have you lived in the valley?
more than 8 years, 10 years maybe?
Did you attend school in the valley, high school?
Yes.
What schools did you go to?
Colony Middle, Colony High School, Palmer High School, and that's it.
I'm going to draw your attention to November 13th of 2016. Did you know David Grunwald?
Yes.
And how did you know David?
Through friends. I didn't know him personally for a long time, but I knew of him.
On November 13th, 2016, did you have any contact with David?
Yes.
And how was that, what was that contact through?
Over online, over Instagram.
Can you tell the jury a little bit about Instagram? I take it you had an Instagram account?
Yes.
How does Instagram work as far as communicating with other people?
You send direct messages, and you can text people over them and send pictures and send posts too.
When you send, if you're going to send a message to someone on Instagram, do you have to be, like, for instance, Facebook, you have to, that person has to accept you as a friend? Is that?
It depends on if your account is on private.
Okay. And was your account on, your Instagram account on private?
I don't remember.
With respect to your contact with David, did David also have an Instagram page?
Yes.
Do you recall what his vanity name was on Instagram?
His account
His
name?
account name?
Davy Wavy or something like that. I don't remember.
And I'll show you the messages in a minute here, and maybe that'll refresh your see if that refreshes your recollection. About what time, okay, can you just tell the jury about the Instagram contact you had with David on November 13th?
I don't remember who texted first, but we were just talking and weren't really talking about much, just kind of normal conversation. I didn't think anything was up at the time.
Do you recall about what time you were talking?
It was in the evening, I'm pretty sure.
Show you what I've marked as State's Exhibit 227.
Coach?
You may.
We'll just take a look at, say, Exhibit 227 and flip through it and then tell me if you recognize it.
Yes, I definitely recognize this.
Okay, how do you recognize that?
It was the conversation me and him had over Instagram, and it was the pictures that they took of my phone when I was being talked to.
Okay. And were you talked to by Alaska State Troopers?
Yes.
Around November 30th of 2016?
I don't remember the date, but I was talked to by them.
And did the trooper who talked to you take photos of your phone at that time?
Yes.
And these were the messages that were still on your Instagram?
Yes, they might, well, actually, I have a different account, but I don't know if they are still on there. I'm not sure, but yeah.
So can you just kind of go through what the conversation you had with
Do I just say it, say the word?
Just kind of explain the conversation.
Okay. I sent a picture and then a meme, and then he said, "That's weird." And another one. And then he said, and then I said, "How are you doing?" And then he said, "Gucci." You, and I said, "Same." And then back and forth, "That's Gucci, so Gucci, same. What you doing?" And then he said, "Smoking a J." And then we exchanged, well, I told him he asked for my Snapchat. And then I told him it was in my Instagram bio.
And did David Snapchat you at all?
He did, but I was asleep when he sent it. So I don't remember what he said, actually. And then
What was the last correspondence that David sent to you?
he said okie dokie to the Snapchat. I told him my Snapchat was in, when he asked for my Snapchat, I told him it was in my Instagram bio, and he said okie dokie.
And about what time did David send the message?
I don't remember. It doesn't say on here. It was sometime in the evening.
Do you recall telling the Alaska State Trooper that it was around 8:10 p.m.?
Yes.
Would that have been the correct time at that time?
Yes, it was pretty late too, so.
And as far as David's Instagram name, does that help refresh your recollection?
Yes.
What was his Instagram?
Davy Baby _ Davy Baby _
Any other contacts?
I texted him, but he never responded about I shared a post about him missing to him,
So
but he never
8:10 was
responded.
the last contact you had with David? About 8:10 p.m. when he sent Okie dokie.
Yes.
Later on in the conversation, when you're saying, just for the jury, as far as when you say Gucci, saying, what is?
It just means like good, you're like doing okay.
And when David said, you asked him, what are you doing, and he said smoking a J, what did you take that to mean?
It means he's smoking a joint.
And what did you take joint? What did you take that to mean?
He was smoking a joint.
A joint, but what is a joint?
Oh, it's weed? Yes.
I move to admit 227.
No objection.
So admitted.
Do you recall, and I know you said the times weren't on the messages, what time when David said he was smoking a J, about what time that was, that message came through?
I don't remember.
It would have been sometime, okie dokie was around 8:10.
Yes.
Do you recall telling investigator Kevin that the message about smoking a J came about 7:07 p.m.?
Yes, that sounds about right. Yeah. It was all in the same hour.
It was the same conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all my questions, thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Stoller.
Good morning, how you doing?
Good morning.
So Gucci means you're doing good?
Yes.
Okay, and when he said he was Gucci and you're good, where's that come from?
I don't really know. It was like a phrase back in 2016. I think,
Well, those popular phrases in 2016?
yes. Everyone was using it.
Okay. So it's kind of a trend, right?
But it's not really a trend anymore.
Right, trends come and go?
Yeah.
And that happened earlier in the night, I'm Gucci, you're Gucci.
hmm
And that was all part of sort of an ongoing conversation, is that right?
Yes, the conversation lasted about an hour, but it was very short.
Okay. So, you'd like check your phone and you'd respond and he would respond back and forth, just on the
Mhm.
phone. And so you got the smoking a J at like 7:07 PM?
Yes.
Okay. And you understood smoking a J to be smoking a joint,
Yes.
which obviously a joint, we're talking about marijuana, is that right?
Yes.
And that's, you got that from David Grunwald at 7:07 PM?
Yes.
All right. And the last one you got was Okie dokie at 8:10 PM?
Yes.
So about an hour later?
Yeah.
All right. I don't have any questions for you, thank you.
All right, you can step down now.
Our next witness is Christopher Pearcy. I just looked and I didn't see him in the hallway, but some people have been coming to her office, not directly in court. We're gonna have to locate Mr. Pearcy. I'm guessing he's at our office, but guys, sir, take the oath.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you will give in this case now the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah.
Please proceed. Please state your full name and spell your first and last name.
Christopher William Pearcy, CHRISTOPHER, PEARCY.
And your occupation?
I'm a bud tender.
Thank you.
Morning. Let me ask you some questions about names and people. Are you familiar with David Evans?
Mm-hmm.
You have to answer yes or no.
Yes,
Okay. And how do you know David Evans?
he's my brother.
And full brother, half brother?
Half.
I'm gonna also turn your attention to November 13th, 2016. Did you pick up your brother at Palmer on that day?
Yeah,
Do you remember what time you picked up your brother?
9:48.
And were there some communications between you and your brother before you went to pick him up?
Yeah, he texted me on Facebook.
Did he ask you for a ride?
Mm-hmm.
You have to answer yes or no.
Yes,
Okay. And did he say where he wanted to go?
my parents' house.
And what was going on at your parents' house?
I was there eating dinner, and we were doing game and dinner night, or movie night.
And did you, tell me, what type of car did you have on that day?
Volkswagen Golf.
Did David have to give you instructions how to get to the place that he was at?
Yeah,
And had you been to Eric Almendinger's house before and
just on a delivery
when you were working?
at Pioneer Pizza.
So when David gave you the instructions, you already kind of knew how to get there? Yes?
Yes,
And when you tell us what you observed when you got to the area, What happened when you got
Dark
there?
out, and
Yep.
he came out of the house.
Did you have to text him or call him to say that you were there?
Yeah, I texted him and said I was here.
And when you say 9:48, you're getting that time from the text record?
Yeah,
Good. He came out of the house, did you see any other vehicles?
there was some vehicles there. I don't know if they were, I figured they were the parents' vehicles, so.
Did you see any, do you remember what kind of vehicles there were? Or not?
No,
No. At all? You remember anything about them at all?
there was a truck.
Pickup truck? Anything else you remember?
No,
No. Were there any people standing outside when you got there or not?
no,
So you got there, you texted your brother, correct? And how soon after you texted him did he come out of the house?
I didn't keep track. He came out.
Well, it wasn't very long.
No, maybe a couple minutes.
Was he alone or was with anybody else?
He was alone.
Was he carrying anything or not?
Couple of bags and a backpack.
And do you remember what color the backpack was or not?
Might have been his blue one. I don't know.
And he got in your car, obviously.
I stayed in my car.
What's that?
I stayed in my
Yep.
car. He came in.
Okay. And did he throw his bags in the back seat or?
Back passenger seat.
And then where did you drive to?
My parents' house.
And was there anything unusual about David on that evening or
No,
not? Anything about his appearance or his mannerisms, anything unusual?
no, he seemed normal.
Did you notice whether his hair was wet or not?
No, I did not.
Did he have longer hair back then as opposed to today or not?
Might have been around here.
Sure.
Almost shoulder length, maybe a little longer.
But you didn't notice whether it was dry or wet?
No, I did not.
Did he have a hat on, do you remember?
I think so. I don't know.
Then you drive to your parents' house?
Correct.
How far was your parents' house from the Aldendinger house?
Depends on which way you went.
But do you remember which way you went?
I took the highway home.
Palmer Wasilla?
Old Glen to the main highway. I don't, the one that leads to Anchorage.
Okay. And then what'd you do on that highway?
I took a right on Seward Meridian and drove down until Bogard and took a right and took a right on High Line and took a left on Biltmore Court.
Let me think here. So, did you take the Palmer Wasilla Highway to Seward Meridian?
No,
You took the Parks Highway to Seward Meridian?
I took the Glen Highway to the main highway where you got, there's the double bridges where they
Oh,
made,
the big interchange?
yeah.
Oh, you took the Glen Highway to the Parks Highway, right?
Okay. Is
Right.
that the name of the one going into Anchorage?
Yeah, well, the Glen goes into Anchorage and the Parks kind of runs into the Glen at the, where they reconfigured that whole.
Yeah.
You know, so you went to that, you went
Mhm.
south on the Glen to that big interchange,
Yeah.
and then you went towards Wasilla on the Parks Highway, and then you turned, that would be right on, you got off the exit at Seward Meridian,
Correct.
and your parents' house is, they're off the Seward Meridian,
It's after Bogard.
off of Bogard. How long do you figure it took you to get to your parents' house from Allmendinger's house?
25, 30 minutes.
And were you having any kind of discussions with your brother during the time or not?
I just asked him how he was.
So nothing unusual about any
No,
any conversation that was going on in the car? And then, tell us what happened when you got to your parents' house.
excuse me. He ate and we watched some movies and played games.
And how long had it been, last time you saw your brother before the 13th? Had it been a while, or had you seen him a few days before the 13th?
I have no idea.
You don't remember, all right. And then you ate, you played some video games,
Board games.
board games, all right. And then, did there come a time when you took him someplace else?
Yeah.
About what time did you take him someplace else?
Probably after midnight. Took him to somewhere off of Midtown.
And did you just drop him off at a house or on the street, or would you?
In front of a house
In Midtown Estates,
in that area.
off the Palmer-Wasilla Highway? Did you know whose house it was, or no? Did he take all his stuff with him, or not?
He took his backpack.
How about the other bags? What happened with those?
He may have left them
At the parents' house,
in my car.
in your car? And you think it was the early morning hours when you dropped them off at Midtown Estates?
Correct.
And again, nothing weird about that ride or the conversation in that ride?
Said he was going over to a girlfriend's house.
And is it fair to say that you are picking him up and dropping him off because David did not have a vehicle during this time?
He may have had his Ranger, but I don't know if he had gas money.
So he possibly could have had a truck?
I don't remember when he had his truck.
I can ask him that, but nonetheless, he didn't have,
He didn't have transportation, no.
on that particular day.
Correct.
Store?
Good morning, how you doing?
Missing work?
I'm not going to keep you too long. You didn't see anybody other than your brother that night?
No.
I don't have any other questions for you.
Okay, thank you, sir. You can step down.
David Evans is our next witness.
Okay.
Please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this case now before this court is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? Please be seated. Please state your full name, spell your first and last name.
My name is David Evans, David Evans.
Your occupation,
Testifying, I believe.
what do you do for a living?
Oh, I work at Connect Towing and Wrecking. I'm a parts puller.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, David. How old are you right now?
I am 21.
And how old were you on November 13th, 2016?
I was 18, turning 19.
And you work at, which place do you work at now?
Connect Towing and Wrecking.
And what you were starting to say, what, you're a parts puller over there?
Yep.
Taking parts off of?
Off of the junk car vehicles and bringing them to the office.
So people could buy them if they need parts for their vehicles?
Yes, sir.
And how long you been working there?
I actually just started yesterday.
And where'd you work before that?
I worked with my dad at Auto Body Concepts.
Is that a body shop?
That's a body shop in Palmer.
And how long did you work there?
I worked there about 2 years.
I'm gonna turn, this is gonna be somewhat lengthy, because I'm gonna be talking to you about a number of things here. But, let's start out with a few basics, and then we'll move along from there. Let me run some names and probably some photographs by you first, all right?
Yes, sir.
David Grunwald.
Yes, sir.
Are you familiar with David Grunwald?
Yes, sir.
tell me how you were familiar with David Grunwald.
David and I went to high school at Colony together, and we were friends through classes. And
And how long do you figure you went to the same school together?
about 2 years.
And you said you became friends because you went to the same classes?
Yes, sir.
And when you say you became friends, like really good friends,
We would talk every day in school.
and you considered him a friend?
Yes, sir.
And did David consider you a friend also?
I believe so.
And so let's put some time frame on this. What year are we talking about when you and David were at Colony together? Or years?
I want to say it was 2014 through 15, the school year.
Okay. And so was it mostly through school, or did you socialize also?
It was mostly through school.
Talking at school?
Yes, sir.
Now, Eric Almendinger, did
I
you
knew-
know him also?
I knew him from Colony also.
And was he in Colony during the same time period?
Yes, sir.
And how would you describe your relationship with Eric Almendinger?
I didn't really know him at first, but then after I got to know him, we became friends.
And let's compare the degree of friendships. Were you better friends with David Grunwald or better friends with Eric Almendinger?
Eric.
And how did you become better friends with Eric? You said you met at school.
No, we just started hanging out every day after school. And just going till the next day.
All right. So you and Eric were very good friends,
Yes,
is
sir.
that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
And had you been over his house?
Yes, sir.
Had he been over your house?
No, sir.
But, so when you say hanging out after school, do you mean hanging out at Eric Almendinger's house, or were there other places you hung out?
Or just around town. We would go to the like skate park and just walk around. We'd go play basketball at the park.
Now, did either of you have vehicles during this time, or were you just on foot, hanging out,
We were on foot
or getting rides?
or getting rides, yeah.
Okay. Now, let me ask you, as far as getting rides, is it unusual for young people to catch rides from other people who have working vehicles?
I don't see a problem with it.
No, but have you seen that?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay, it's a regular activity.
Yes, sir.
All right, like, for example, on November 13th, we heard you got a ride from your brother, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you have a car or a truck or whatever on November 13th or
No,
not?
sir.
No. He mentioned something about a Ranger, then,
That-
or I'm assuming he's talking about a Ford Ranger.
Yeah.
Pickup truck.
I had that truck before I was living with Eric, and it had gotten towed to the junkyard.
And then, did you leave Colony eventually?
Yes, sir.
And David Grunwald went to a different school eventually too, right?
I believe he went to Tech.
Career Tech, right?
Yes, sir.
And did you leave Colony first, or did he leave Colony first to go to Career Tech?
I think he left to Tech first, and then I switched to Pathways.
And Eric Almendinger went to Pathways also?
Yes, sir.
And so who left Colony first, between you and Eric? Did Eric Almendinger leave first to
I
Pathways?
want to say we left about the same time.
And what year of school were you in when you switched to Pathways? Do you remember? Junior, senior?
It was my junior year, I believe.
And then, did you keep in touch with, even after you left Colony, did you keep in touch with David Grunwald?
Sometimes he would come over and hang out.
To where?
To Eric's house.
But was he more friends with you or with Eric, or both of you guys?
I'm not totally sure.
All right, well, he was friends with you for sure, right?
Yes, sir.
And so when he came to Eric's house, and are we talking about 2016, that he would come to Eric's house?
Yes, sir.
Did he come to see you, or did he come to see Eric, or did he come to see both of you guys?
He'd come see both of us.
And what would you guys do when the three of you hung out?
No, we'd play video games and smoke marijuana.
And where was this marijuana coming from?
Eric's dad, Rodney.
And so was this a household where Rodney Allmendinger permitted you and Eric Allmendinger to smoke marijuana?
Yes, sir.
And was this like, was he just providing it to you?
He was growing it at the time, and I guess, yeah, he did provide it.
All right, and I think, you know, we might explore the issue later of whether this marijuana was for like his mother's medicinal use, whether it had any intoxicating effect or not. In your opinion, did this marijuana have some potency or intoxicating effect?
Yes, sir.
And David Grunwald, were you familiar with what kind of vehicle he had?
Yes, sir. He had a Bronco.
We're showing you state's proposed exhibit number 19. And it's more for like the type of vehicle, not as the exact car with the same VIN number. But you had been in David's Bronco before, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you're kind of a car guy because you worked at a body shop and you work at the wrecking yard, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you're familiar with the full-size Broncos as compared to the smaller Broncos they had for a while?
Yes, sir.
This Bronco that we have in this photograph labeled State's Proposed Exhibit number 19, is it the type of Bronco David had?
Yes, sir.
All right. And I don't know if you remember, like with Broncos, there's different trim levels, like there's XL, XLT, Eddie Bauer. Do you remember which trim level David's Bronco was?
I want to say it was an XLT.
But was it similar in appearance to this one here?
Yes, sir.
And is it fair to say that these big Broncos basically have two doors, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you've been in David's, how many times have you been in David's Bronco?
I was in there twice.
And did you ever go in the back seat
Yes.
when you were riding in it?
Yes.
And is it fair to say that you gotta go through,
You got to go through the passenger or driver's side to get to the back.
yeah, and is it a situation where the seat folds and slides forward, and you can step up into the Bronco and sit down in the back seat?
Yes, sir.
And then, as far as, it's got a full back seat, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then it's got a fiberglass canopy over the back part of the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
So this looks similar to David's Bronco at least?
Yes, sir.
I move for the admission of number 19.
I don't have an objection to that.
So admitted.
And we're going a little bit low tech this morning, so I have to publish these as we admit them. These times that you say that David Grunwald hung out with you and Eric, about how many, ballpark, how many times you guys hung out at Eric Allmendinger's
I want to say 2 or 3 times.
in 2016?
Yes, sir.
And was it always doing the same thing?
Yes, sir.
Video games?
Video games and smoking marijuana.
And was it in the downstairs of the house, or
We
other
were
places
we were in the camper,
in the camp?
that Rodney had on the property.
And was there a time when Rodney's other son was living in the camper with his girlfriend?
Yes, sir.
Right, and were you guys hanging out in the camper during that time, or when they were gone?
We were hanging out in the camper until they moved out, and then Rodney moved us into the house.
So we'll say that again, those guys moved out, and then you guys were able to
Right,
hang
Eric's
out?
brother moved out, and then Rodney moved me and Eric into the house downstairs.
Well, let me back up again. So you said that at some point, Eric Allmendinger's brother and his girlfriend were living in the camper.
No, they were living in the room downstairs.
Got it. Okay, that, I guess that's where I got confused. So they were living downstairs and you guys were in the camper,
Yes, sir.
and then they left
And then we took over the room.
because it was getting colder?
Yes, sir.
And, so you're pretty familiar with that camper?
Yes, sir.
Like almost with all the features of that camper?
I remember what it looks like on the inside.
Let me ask you this, where was the camper located?
It was located in the backyard next to the garage.
And was it a situation where you can plug the camper in and like the lights that were built into the camper by the manufacturer would come, you can get those lights on and off?
Yes, sir.
And what, you need an extension cord and plug it into
Yes, sir.
a receptacle on the outside?
Yes, sir.
And so you had lights in there, right?
Yes, sir.
And how about, when you were hanging out there, was it fall?
Yes,
Late
sir.
fall?
It was late fall, starting of winter.
And so how would you, if you needed to warm up the camper, how would you guys accomplish that?
We had a little electric space heater, and then his dad eventually got us propane.
And when you were hanging out in the camper, and you were living there a little bit, right?
Yes, sir.
Was there a lot of stuff in the camper? Was it?
Yes, there was a bunch of stuff up top, like on the top bunk.
And how would you describe the stuff that was in the top bunk?
It was just a bunch of household items like microwaves, pieces to an oven, blankets, pillows.
And the bathroom, was it a functional bathroom in the camper? Did people use the bathroom or not?
No, nobody used the bathroom.
Because of what?
It wasn't hooked up to running water.
Not even to,
No.
take a leak or whatever?
No, sir, we had to either go inside or go outside.
Okay. And how about, the ability to lock it or not?
Rodney had the key, and we were able to lock it from the inside.
And how do you lock it from the inside?
It's just, you just turn a little switch that says lock, and it locks the door.
And did you guys ever have to like pry the door open to get into the camper or not?
No,
Did it ever
Eric,
get stuck or something?
Eric always knew where the key was until Rodney had changed where he hid it. And then we would sometimes break in there.
And how would you break in there?
He had a pry bar in his dad's shop.
Well, educate me on that. If Rodney was letting you guys stay in the camper, at what point did he change the lockout where you guys couldn't hang out in the camper?
After he moved us inside the house.
Which was about when in relation to November 13th, 2016?
I don't know the exact date.
The month before?
No, it was in November.
It was in November? Right. So you and Eric, well, let's get back to that because I know that we're going to talk about you being gone for a couple of weeks and that caused a problem on November 13th. So just keep that tucked away, but let's leave it for now that eventually the trailer lock was changed so younger people couldn't be in there, correct?
Yes, sir.
But you guys still gained access to it?
Yes, sir.
And what would be the reason for you guys wanting to be in the trailer versus being downstairs in the house?
All the game systems were still in the trailer. His TV was still in there. We still had all our sleeping utensils in there.
Right, how about when Rodney Almendinger changed the lock, did he also tarp the trailer for the winter?
Yes, sir.
So how did that affect you and Eric getting in and out of the trailer?
He had tied ropes across the door
All right,
to help lock it and keep us out.
and did you guys have to move the tarp to pry the door open?
Yes, sir.
Right, because when you look at the trailer, there's a number of pry marks on the door. Is that from you guys?
I
Forcing it?
believe so.
What's that?
I believe so.
Okay. And, I mean, it was like a metal crowbar you guys used to get into the trailer?
Yes, sir.
And did you ever get scolded for that by Ronnie Almendinger?
Yes, we did.
Was that before you left for those few weeks that you were gone?
Yes, sir.
But you're saying it wasn't going into the camper, marijuana smoking was not the sole reason for it, there were other reasons that you guys like being in the camper.
Yes, sir.
So let's expand it to some other people. Let's start out with the person that's here, Dominic Johnson. Are you familiar with Dominic Johnson?
Yes, sir.
How are you familiar with Dominic Johnson?
We attended high school together, in
Which high school was this?
Colony High School.
At the same time when Eric Almendinger was there?
Yes, sir.
At the same time that David Grunwald was there?
Yes, sir.
And let's talk about degrees of friendship. Were you friends with Dominic Johnson?
I was.
And what was the extent of your friendship?
We just see each other in the hall and see what's up and talk for a little bit and then go back to class.
All right. Was it similar to your friendship with David Grunwald?
Yes, sir.
In that regard, as far as the depth of your friendship?
Yes, sir.
So is it fair to say, again, comparing and contrasting, that you were better friends with Eric Almendinger than you were with Dominic Johnson?
Yes, sir.
Now, were there occasions when Dominic Johnson would socialize with either you or Eric Almendinger?
Yes, sir.
And was that at Eric Almendinger's house?
Yes, sir.
And the same activities, marijuana smoking
Yes, sir.
and video game playing?
Yes, sir.
And how many times did you see Dominic Johnson at Eric Almendinger's?
I saw him there about twice.
And can you tell us what month that was, or not?
It was before I had left for the week. So I want to say it was in October.
Of 2016?
Yes, sir.
Was there ever any intersection between David Grunwald and Dominic Johnson
I
at
don't,
the Almendinger property?
I don't think I ever saw them together.
And with Almendinger, I assume that in addition to living with them and hanging out with them, did you also communicate with them?
Yes, sir.
What did you have as a communication device?
I had a cell phone.
And what did Eric Almendinger have as a communication device?
I believe he had his grandma's tablet.
Did he usually carry that around with him?
Yes, sir.
I mean, was it essentially his phone? The tablet was his phone?
Yes, sir.
And how did you and Eric Almendinger communicate? What modes of communication did you use?
He would Snapchat me.
Was that the most prevalent one you used,
Yes, sir.
you think?
Snapchat.
Also phone calls,
Phone calls through
Texting?
Snapchat.
texting too,
Yes, sir.
Facebook Messenger?
Not so much on Facebook.
No. And then David Grunwald, did you communicate with him? Did he have a phone also?
He did. We communicated through Messenger.
Regularly or on occasion?
On occasion.
How about you and Johnson?
This is on occasion. We never really talked that much unless we were in person.
He had a phone also, right?
Yes, sir.
And how did you communicate with him?
Messenger.
Facebook Messenger?
Yes, sir.
And as far as the compare and contrast, were you better friends with David Grunwald or Dominic Johnson?
Dominic.
And then I'm gonna just show you some photographs to make sure we have the right people. State's exhibit number 23 proposed. Is this a photograph of Dominic Johnson?
Yes, sir.
Move for the admission of 23.
Any objection?
No.
I'll admit it.
Now, let's expand it a little bit further. Let me run another name by you. Austin Barrett, do you know that person?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How did you know Austin Barrett?
Me and Austin graduated the Military Youth Academy together.
Is that where you first met him?
Yes, sir.
And is that the academy is in Anchorage?
Yes, sir, on J Bear.
And what years were you there?
I was there 2014-2.
What?
2014-2. That was the year I graduated. They go by 6 months. You're supposed to be there for 6 months and then you graduate. We went there in April and graduated in August.
Did both of you graduate together?
Yes, sir.
Did you become friends with Austin Barrett?
Not for a couple of months after we graduated.
It was only after you graduated you became friends with him?
Yes, sir.
And how did you look him up, or how did he look you up?
He just was over at the house that I was over at, and we started talking after that.
And when you say you became friends, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you socialize together?
Yes, sir.
And what was the form of socialization?
Hang out, smoke, marijuana.
Now, was this again at the Elmerdinger property?
No, sir.
It was other places?
Yes, sir.
But the common activity was marijuana smoking?
Yes, sir.
And when do you figure like you reestablished contact with him after the military academy?
I can't remember.
2015 or 2016?
I want to say it was about 2016, beginning of it.
And how often would you hang out with Austin Barrett?
I was actually staying at the house he was living at, so I'd see him every day.
Where was that at?
It was the Jasper house down Jasper Street.
Were there a bunch of young people staying there?
Yes, sir.
And then, so you would obviously see him quite often at the Jasper house?
Yes, sir.
Every day?
Yes, sir.
And then, how long were you living together with him at the Jasper house?
Up until me and Eric moved into his dad's in August.
Of 2016?
Yes, sir.
And was Eric at the Jasper house too?
Yes, sir.
And then, did you continue to associate with Austin after you moved to Eric Almendinger's?
No, sir.
No?
We stopped talking after that.
Not even texting or anything like that?
No, sir.
Did you ever see Austin Barrett at Eric Almendinger's house?
No, sir.
Never at all?
Never at all.
So so did your friendship cease at that point?
I wouldn't say it ceased. We just stopped talking.
All right. So were you better friends with Dominic Johnson or Austin Barrett? Or was it about the same?
It was about the same.
About the same. Turning your attention to state's proposed exhibit number 24, can you tell me who is depicted in that photograph?
That's Austin Barrett.
Move for the admission of 24.
No objection.
So admitted. And so far, can you give me the age ranges, like the people we talked about so far? If you know, you, Eric Almendinger, Dominic Johnson, Austin Barrett, David Grunwald, do you know like the hierarchy, so to speak, of ages, like who was the oldest, who was next in line, if you know?
I know I was the oldest,
Mhm.
and then it was Austin, and I think Eric, and then Dominic, and then David.
And that's what you believe?
That's what I think.
And I'm sure you'd have all the birth dates memorized or not?
No.
Okay, but clearly you were the oldest, right?
Yes, sir.
And Austin, in 2016, Austin was what, 19 years old?
Yes, sir.
Let's keep going here. Bradley Renfro, do you know Bradley Renfro?
Yes, sir. We went to school together as well, Colony.
Was it the same time that Dominic Johnson was there?
Yes, sir.
And the same time that, who else was there? David Grunwald was there?
David was there. and
Eric Almendinger?
Eric.
And now let's talk about Bradley Renfro. Were you friends with Bradley Renfro?
Yes, sir.
Just as good of a friend as Dominic Johnson was?
Yes, sir.
Just as good of a friend as Austin Barrett was?
Yes, sir.
And the friendship you had with Renfro, Barrett, and Johnson was stronger than the friendship you had with David Grunwald, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then the friendship you had with Eric Almendinger was the strongest, correct?
Yes, sir.
Right. And just so we know, we're talking about the same person. Dominic Johnson is in the courtroom here today, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so Bradley through school, did you socialize with him outside of school?
Sometimes, yes.
Doing what?
Same thing as everybody else, smoking marijuana, hanging out, walking around.
And did you ever see him at Eric Allmendinger's house?
I've seen him there a couple times.
And was there any intersection between Bradley Renfro and David Grunwald at the Allmendinger house or not?
No, sir.
This is not the greatest of photographs, states proposed exhibit number 25, but is that Bradley Renfro?
Yes, sir.
Move to admit number 25.
Any objection? So admitted.
Now turning your attention to Devin Peterson, does that name ring a bell to you?
Yes, sir.
How did you know Devin Peterson?
Me and Devin first met at Colony High School in our 4th hour class, study hall.
Colony also?
Yes, sir.
Same time when Dominic Johnson was there?
Yes, sir.
Same time when David Grunwald was there?
Yes, sir.
Same time that Eric Allmendinger was there
Yes, sir.
and Renfro?
Yes, sir.
So all of you had met initially at Colony?
Yes, sir.
And did you become friends with Devin Peterson?
Yes, sir.
Was he in your class or was he older, younger? What can you tell me about Devin Peterson?
Devin was younger.
Than you?
Yes, sir.
Was he older? Was he about the same age as Austin Barrett?
I think he was a couple months younger.
Were they in the same class together? Like
No.
Same
Or same
senior-
age group?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And did you start to hang around with Devin Peterson also?
Yes, sir.
And outside of school?
Yes, sir.
What type of things did you guys do?
Smoke marijuana, walk around, watch soda, and just chill out.
All right. And just to tie this together, like Dominic Johnson was friends with Eric Allmendinger, correct?
I believe so.
And Austin,
Whoa, Jay. If he doesn't know the answer.
right,
you said it believes-
I'm asking from his personal knowledge, obviously. I'm not asking you to speculate. Did you see Dominic Johnson hang out with Eric Allmendinger?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did you see Austin Barrett hang out with Eric Allmendinger?
Yes, sir.
Did you see Bradley Renfro hang out with Eric Allmendinger?
Yes, sir.
Did you see Devin Peterson hang out with Eric Allmendinger?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever see Devin Peterson at Eric Allmendinger's house?
No, because Myler did not like Devin.
So he was banned from the
Yes, sir.
house?
Yes, sir.
So they hung out in different areas?
Yes, sir.
And then like how about your degree with friendship with Devin Peterson? Was it about the same level as your friendship with Johnson, Barrett, Renfro?
The 4th hour was a class that we would go to every day, and I'd see Devin every day, so I'd sit next to him. So I think he was a better friend than all the other ones.
Even better friend than Eric?
Him and Eric are about equal.
Okay. And did you continue to be friends with Devin Peterson after you left Colony?
Yes, sir.
And just by communicating with them
Yes, sir.
and socializing with them also?
Yes, sir.
Turning your attention to proposed exhibit number 27 from the state, can you tell me who's depicted in that photograph?
And that is Devin Peterson.
Move to admit number 27.
No objection to that.
So admitted.
Was Devin Peters, or I think we covered that you and Austin and Eric lived at the Jasper House in Wasilla for a while
Yes, sir.
during the summer of 2016, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did Devin live there too?
Yes, sir.
And how about Bradley Renfro, did he live there too?
He would stay the night, but he'd normally go back to his dad's house.
Devin would go to his dad's house.
No, Bradley would.
Bradley would go to his dad's house, but he would hang around at the Jasper house.
Yes, sir.
And who were the owners of the Jasper house?
I don't,
Or what-
Yep.
At the Jasper house, is it fair to assume that there was a young person who lived there that all of you knew? And
Yes,
there
sir.
were at least some parents there, is that correct?
yes, sir.
And was that Jackie? C?
Yes, sir.
Now, let me ask you a little bit about, let me finish up on this. So what I was trying to accomplish here is determine like the groups and who was part of the group. Now, is it correct that David Grunwald was friends with you and Eric and not the other people that I've mentioned?
I don't totally know that.
Okay,
I knew they knew him.
Yeah, knew them, but from your observations, like, were you ever in a place where David Grunwald was socializing, in your presence, in your eyes, was socializing with either Johnson or Renfro or Barrett, except for school, when they
No,
could have
sir.
been? No?
No, sir.
I'm talking outside of school, hanging out outside of school. Did you, with your eyes, ever see David Grunwald associating with Devin Peterson or Bradley Renfro or Dominic Johnson or Austin Barrett?
No, sir.
Now, let's talk a little bit about you living on the Almendinger property. Is it fair to assume that you have a very good knowledge of the layout of the Almendinger property, correct?
Yes, sir.
We talked a little bit about the trailer. You acknowledged that it's a fairly older trailer, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you told us that you had permission to be there, but then the permission was revoked and you were supposed to be inside the house, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then tell us a little bit about you leaving. Did you leave alone or with Eric Almendinger when you stayed away for a couple of weeks from the house?
I had left alone. I went to my buddy Brian Johnson's house and stayed there for a week.
And so it was your personal decision to leave, correct?
Yes, sir.
But before that, did Rodney Almendinger and Myler Almendinger allow you to stay at the house?
Yes, sir.
And who's in charge over there? Is it Rodney or Myler or both of them?
It's mostly Myler.
Because it's her,
It's her house.
it's her house. So does she have the final say of who stays and who goes?
Yes, sir.
And then, did you know whether Eric left or not after you left?
I have no clue.
Like, I'm asking, like, after you.
After I left for the week,
Yeah,
I don't know if he left or not.
all right. Were you supposed to be going to Pathways during, because you
Yes,
were
sir.
going to Pathways before you left, right?
Yes,
And did you stop going to school after you left?
yes, I did.
So you don't know whether Eric Almendinger kept going to school or not, right?
Yes, I did not know that.
Now, did you know that, you know, there were gonna probably be some hard feelings if you came back, or that you would get scolded if you came back?
I was expecting a slap on the wrist from them, but
But nothing more than that?
yes, sir.
I mean, did Rodney at least have some rules when he let you stay there? Did Myler have some rules when they allowed you to stay, when she allowed you to stay there?
The rule was it's either go to school or get a job.
And the choice was school?
Yes, sir.
And when you were going to Pathways, when you were living there with Eric and going to Pathways, were both of you walking to school?
Rodney would drive us in the morning and drop us off, and then we'd walk back after school.
And remind me, how far is Pathways from the Almendinger property?
Less than a mile. If you walk through the woods.
And when you were living there, did you have any intersection with Christian Ward, who lived across the street? Did you get to know him a bit?
Yes, sir.
Did you hang out with him also?
Yes, sir.
And what, you knew him as the neighbor,
Yes, sir.
neighbor kid?
Yes, sir.
And did you consider him a friend also?
I did.
And was he a friend of Eric Almendinger?
He was.
Now, as far as the layout, we covered the camper. There is, let's cover some of the other things on the property. Was there a newer big garage on the property?
Yes, sir.
And by newer, I mean, does it look newer, or do you know that it was built
It was recently built.
and were you there when it was being built or not?
No.
And it has a big overhead door?
Yes.
And what color is that big garage?
White?
Light colored?
Like you mean the garage door?
Yeah, well, the garage itself, but you can.
It wasn't painted. It was still plywood colored.
Like a tan colored.
You're right.
And was there a smaller, newer outbuilding also, like maybe they held an ATV or something? If you remember.
No, they had a already built garage that they put Myler's vehicles in.
The one that was attached, kind of attached to the house?
Yes.
And was that older garage separated by like a carport that might have been covered?
Yes.
All right. And then at some point you were downstairs. And is that a bedroom or is that just an open area downstairs or what?
It's like another living room downstairs with 2 rooms down there and a bathroom.
When you left, did you take any of your belongings with you or not?
I took my backpack full of clothes.
And what kind of backpack did you have?
I want to say it was an Etnies backpack,
Color?
blue and red.
And did you leave some of your stuff there?
Yes.
Did you tell Eric Almendinger that you were leaving?
I did not.
Did you, after you left, did you communicate with him and telling him that you were gone, or was it just?
I just left out of the blue and came back a week later.
So when we start talking about the November 13th day, is that you just came back out of the blue?
Yes.
All right, let's talk a little bit about November 13th. Eventually, you made it to the Almendinger residence on November 13th, right?
Yes.
What time do you figure you got there on November 13th?
I want to say about 6 o'clock. I got there.
And how did you get there on that day?
I had texted or messaged David on Facebook asking for a ride.
David Grunwald?
Yes, sir.
And where were you when you sent him that text?
I was over at my friend Faith's house.
And where is that?
It's behind Pioneer Pizza.
And So you wanted, what made you want to go back to the Almendinger house on that day?
I wanted to grab some more clothes, and I actually wanted to go to school the next day. All my stuff was there.
And was it your intent to try to stay there?
Yes.
Okay. Now, did you try other people, or was David your first choice of people to text?
David was my first choice to text and see if I could get a ride.
And why David versus any of the other people that we talked about so far?
David was the only one with a vehicle.
Out of all the people that I talked about?
Yes, sir.
But certainly you probably know some other people in the valley with vehicles, right?
Yes.
Parents?
Yes.
So why was David Grunwald your first choice?
Because he was heading to Palmer anyways, so I had to get to Palmer.
Yeah, but how did you know that he was going to Palmer?
I asked him what he was doing,
Okay.
and then he told me that he was about to take Victoria home. So I was like, hey, you think you could run me by Eric's house? He said, yeah.
And this was via text or
Facebook Messenger.
Facebook Messenger? And so he said fine?
Yes, sir.
And did you have some gear with you, or what, at Faith's house?
I just had my backpack full of stuff.
And is that all you said? You didn't really elaborate, like why you wanted to go to Eric's and? You
I just wanted to get home.
And you already told us David knew where Eric lived, correct?
Yes.
All right. And he didn't, you saying he didn't have any objection to giving you a ride, right?
No.
And, again, regular activity where people ask for rides if they don't have cars?
Yes, sir.
So, what time do you figure David picked you up?
6:30, 6:45.
At?
Pioneer Pizza.
And how far was it a walk for you to walk from, whose house was it again?
Faith.
Faith Hills? I mean, Faith Hill. Faith, what was her last name?
Clayton, I believe.
Clayton, right. How far of a walk was it?
It was just down the road.
And tell us what happened when you got to Pioneer Pizza.
I didn't know what David was driving at the time, so I got to Pioneer Pizza, and I messaged him. I was like, where you at? He's like, I'm in the Bronco on the far side of the parking lot. So I went up there, and Victoria was with him, and I was like, all right, we're all ready to go. So he decided to drop Victoria off first at her dad's house, and then drop me off, and I, thinking that I was going to be able to stay at Eric's house still, I invited David back over, and he went and did stuff with Victoria in the Butte.
All right, so they picked you up. She was in the Bronco, right?
Yes.
Did you go in the back seat
Yes.
through the passenger side?
Yes.
Then you took off down the Palmer-Wasilla Highway?
Towards Palmer, yes.
And everything, the Bronco was running fine, everything was good?
Yes, sir.
You were under the understanding that David had to take Victoria to where?
Her dad's house.
Eventually,
Yes.
in the Butte?
Yes.
Okay. Now, did you know that he first had to take her to the mother's house, her mother's house?
I did not.
Okay, but do you recall them, all of you stopping first
Yes.
and her getting out
Yes.
at a house that was very close to Eric Almendinger's house?
It was right down the block.
Okay. But you didn't know that was her mother's house?
I did not.
Got it, all right. So then, what happened after Victoria was dropped off?
Right after Victoria was dropped off, David dropped me off, and I was talking to him, and I was like, hey, why don't you come over later after you're done not being busy? He's like, yeah, I'll see what I could do. And then he left.
And there was nothing, what were you planning on doing when he got there?
Video games, smoke marijuana.
And were you presuming that Eric Almendinger was at home?
Yes.
Did you communicate with Eric Almendinger at any time before David dropped you off there?
No.
No.
I just showed back up at his house.
So he had no idea, as far as you giving him a heads up that you were coming back to the house?
He had no idea.
But you thought he was gonna be there, right?
Yes.
So when you ran that idea by David Grunwald for him to drop back by, was it, in your mind, were you thinking that he was gonna join you and Eric as you guys did in the past and hang
Sure.
out?
Yes.
Right. Did you have any idea that anybody else would be at Eric Almenninger's, other than maybe Rodney or Myler?
I did not know.
And what do you remember David's response being when you suggested he drop back by?
He said, I'll try my hardest, but it's not a guaranteed thing.
And that's it?
And that's it. And then we left.
And were there any extensive discussions about what you were gonna do when if he came back?
I had asked him to come over and play some video games, do our regular thing.
Right. Okay. And you were just reaching out, saying, hey, if you're bored, come back by and hang out with me, is that the gist of it?
Yes, sir.
Did you see him leave in the Bronco?
Yes, I did.
Now, is it dark at this time when he drops you off, or is
Yes,
it
it
getting?
It was getting dark.
It was getting dark. And you, of course, did you know he was gonna go pick Victoria back up and take her
To the butte, yes.
And then you probably know how long it takes to get out to the butte, right? So you figured that it wouldn't be that long.
Right.
David could come and hang out with you.
Right.
Now, let's switch gears and let's talk about what happened when you knocked down the door at the Almendinger house.
Eric answered the door and we sat outside for a little bit. And then Rodney comes out and he's like, what are you doing here? And I was like, well, I thought I lived here. He's like, well, you haven't been here for a week. You have to go up to Grandma and see if it's okay with her, if you could stay. And I went upstairs. Eric went up there with me and we talked for about 15 minutes. And she said I could stay the night and go
Back
to...
up a little bit. Was Rodney being kind of loud?
He was.
And was it a longer conversation than just what you described?
Yes.
Did he keep repeating certain things?
Yes.
Like what was he repeating?
He was repeating, you were gone for a week. We didn't know if you were dead or not. You had to talk to Grandma. He kept repeating that. And yelling at Eric because they got in a little fight.
Was Eric trying to stand up for you?
Yes.
And then you had to report to Myler?
Upstairs, yes.
And what upstairs is her room or the kitchen or
The
what's?
upstairs where Rodney lived downstairs, upstairs to that was the kitchen, and then upstairs from the kitchen was Myler's room.
3-story?
Yes.
And then tell us, so what happened when you went up to talk to Myler? Did Eric Almendinger go with you?
He did.
All right. And at this time, to your knowledge, nobody else was there except the people you mentioned thus far? You, Eric Almendinger, Rodney Almendinger, and Myler Almendinger, right?
Yes.
All right. You know, what happens when you go talk to Myler Almendinger?
I went upstairs and she asked me where I was, and I told her where I was over at my buddy Brian's house. And she said, well, you had me worried. I was worried like you were my son, and you should have let us know where you were going. I said, yeah, I do agree with that. And I was like, Rodney wanted me to ask if I could still stay. And she looks at me and she's like, you could stay the night and go to school tomorrow, but you can't come back after that. So that's when I was like, all right, I'm gonna go downstairs, take a shower, and that's when I hit up my brother to go to my parents' house.
But we heard that you didn't stay at your parents' house, so you left there at about 1 in the morning or something.
Right, I left
What
with
was
my...
your ultimate plan? Obviously, it was not to stay the night at Almendinger's, right?
Right.
So what was your ultimate plan?
I went and had dinner with my parents, and then I went back over to Faith's house that night.
So you say you got there roughly 6:30-ish, or when do you think?
To the Almendinger house, yes.
Right. And then we know you got picked up at 9:48 because your brother texted you, right? So you were there 4 hours?
About,
Let's talk about those 4 hours. So how much of,
3 hours.
oh, 3 hours, sorry. Thank you. Let's talk about those 3 hours. How long, talking to Rodney Almendinger and Myler Almendinger, how long did that take of those 3 hours?
about half of it.
Hour and a half of talking?
Yes. And then I also took a shower for 30 minutes to 45 minutes. And then I had to wait on my brother to get off work
Now,
and come pick me up.
was there some time spent hanging out with Eric Almendinger downstairs?
Yes.
Was there any drinking or marijuana smoking downstairs?
He came down and smoked a bowl with me.
And do you believe that you were affected by the marijuana that you smoked?
Yes.
As far as what, getting a buzz?
Just a buzz, yeah.
And did you perceive that Eric Almendinger was affected by the marijuana also?
Yes.
And was that before or after you took a shower?
That was after.
And was there any
Or
drinking?
before.
Before?
Before it was after.
And was there any drinking or not?
No, there wasn't.
What else happened? Try to cover everything. What else happened downstairs? Marijuana smoking?
After I got out of the shower, I got dressed and went out and talked to Rodney about what my plan was. About I was going home to my parents tonight and that I won't be coming back.
Did you talk to Eric Almendinger about that too?
No, after I got out of the shower, I didn't know where Eric was.
All right. How about before, when you guys were sitting, I assume it takes a while to smoke a bowl, right? How long did it take to smoke a bowl?
10, 15 minutes if we're
So-
chatting.
And you know that you're making this decision whether to stay or go that night.
Yes.
Were there any conversations between you and Eric Almendinger about what you were gonna do, or he give you any advice about what to do?
He said that I could stay, but I was like, I'll just go back to my mom's house. I haven't seen them in a long time, so,
So you finished smoking the bowl, took a shower. Did you gather your clothes after the shower, before?
yes, after the shower.
And how many containers of clothes did you have? when-
I had 2 big yellow bags there, and my backpack full.
And was it all clothes, or was there school books, or? can you
There
tell
was,
us?
there was bed equipment, like blankets, pillows, and clothes.
And so when you come out, was Eric Almendinger still in the room when you come out of the shower, or when you went into the shower? So-
Yes.
And then you said it was a super long shower?
It was about 30 minutes, 30, 45
And then when
minutes.
you came out, was he still down there or not?
I did not see Eric after I got out.
Okay. Did you want to talk to him after you got out of the shower or not?
I wasn't really looking forward to it, but if he was there, yeah.
All right, but I mean, I guess what I'm asking is, was it your intent to tell him, I'm leaving, goodbye, see you around? Or were you
Yes,
just
I
gonna-
let him know that as I was leaving. I texted him that.
All right. And this was on your phone?
Yes.
And there was some issue as to whether your phone was working or not on that day? It was functioning on that day?
I have a $45 a month plan, so it runs out after a month. But if I have Wi-Fi, it'll still work off the Wi-Fi.
So about what time do you figure you texted Eric to say that you were leaving?
Right before my brother got there. I want to say 9:30, I let him know.
And do you remember exactly what you texted to Eric?
I don't.
Now, could it have been a Snapchat?
It was.
It was a Snapchat, all right. Would it refresh your recollection if I were to show you a record of the Snapchat for you to read to yourself the words you used, just to yourself, and then see if it helps refresh your recollection
Yes, sir.
as to what you texted? show you this paper which has communications, not just between you and Eric, but it's a summary of a number of communications, but specifically the one I have highlighted where it's between David Evans and Eric Awesome. Can you read that to yourself?
Was leaving. Probably won't be here when you get back. Grab some weed from the jar. I'll talk to you later.
Okay. And then I noticed like a couple lines before that, let me ask you a question on 9/18. So a couple minutes before that, did you Facebook message Dominic Johnson?
I believe so. It says I did.
You don't recall texting that particular word to him?
No, because I was focused on getting my stuff back.
Okay. There's only one phone that David Evans has on that night, right?
Yes.
Okay. Is it possible that you texted the word nigga to him on
It's possible.
Facebook, but don't remember it today?
Yes, sir.
If you did that, what would that mean? What would that text mean?
I don't know. I mean, it was a one-word text.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a term that you guys used on a regular basis?
Yes, sir.
All right, and it's not necessarily a racially demeaning term, it was just a term that was used by a lot of people during that time?
Yes, sir.
Okay, anything else about that that I should be enlightened about? Is it just slang?
Yes, just
Okay.
slang.
But you recall using that word with others during this time period?
Yes, sir.
And you recall others using that word to you
Yes, sir.
during that time period?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just want to make sure it's not a black-white type thing, it's just everybody was throwing that term around back then?
Yes, sir.
All right, so do you remember whether you ever got a response from Eric Almendinger to you saying that you were going?
I didn't.
And Eric Awesome was what showed up on his phone, Eric is Awesome, I'm sorry, was what showed up on his phone when you communicated with him?
And that's his Snapchat username.
All right. Now, tell me, when your brother came, tell me the steps you took, like where you went through the house and outside to get to your brother's car.
I went out the back door downstairs, and I walked up the side steps by the tree that's in the front yard, and I walked to the driveway that way.
All right. Did you see anybody outside?
No, I didn't.
Did you see any other vehicles at that point?
I saw the regular Escape that they drove, and then my brother parked behind it. I was able to see it because he had his lights on.
And that's it?
That's the only one that I could see.
Did you see David Grunwald's Bronco there when you were leaving?
I did not.
But you would remember, if you had seen it at 9:48, you would have remembered that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you hear any other voices when you were leaving at 9:48?
No.
Anybody talking or any voices you would recognize?
No.
And you were telling us that you had no idea where Eric Almendinger was when you left, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And if you texted or Facebook messaged Dominic Johnson at 9:18, you did not know where he was either if
I
you
did
had
not know.
Okay. And tell me, is it likely that the records are correct, you're just not remembering
Yes, sir.
Facebook messaging Dominic Johnson?
Yes, sir.
All right, so you leave and you go to your parents' house, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then, is it fair to say at that point you stopped living with the Almendingers or not?
Yes.
And you went to your parents, had dinner, hung out with your brother, and where did your brother drop you off after that?
He dropped me back off at Faith's.
At the what?
At Faith's.
Same place that you
Same
came
place.
from?
Yes, sir.
Right. And did you get permission to stay there?
Yes.
Was that your girlfriend?
Working on it at the time.
Okay. And then you stayed there the rest of the night into the morning?
Yes, sir.
But you got dropped there at 1 o'clock in the morning?
Yes.
Approximately? And then you slept over,
Yes.
and then you woke up there the next morning?
Yes.
And when you asked David Grunwald, you never heard back from him as far as whether he was heading back over, did you?
I did not.
Did you ever text him or message him to ask him again whether he was coming over or not?
I don't remember. I
Yeah.
might have.
And during those 3 hours when you were talking to the Almendingers and taking a shower, gathering your belongings, did you sort of forget about David Grunwald and him coming over or no?
I did.
Did you ever mention to Eric Almendinger that you had extended the invite to David Grunwald for him to come over later?
I did tell Eric that David was probably gonna be coming back over.
And did you tell that to Eric when you first got there,
After I got done with my shower.
after you got done with the shower? Did he have a response to that?
No,
None at all?
nothing.
Didn't say, oh, that's cool, or good, or didn't say anything about that at all? Did he even acknowledge that you said that?
He noticed I said it. He looked right at me and nodded his head.
But no response?
No.
Did you have any knowledge that Austin Baird was gonna be at the Almendinger place that day?
I did not.
Or Dominic Johnson,
Did not.
or Bradley
I
Renfro?
did not.
And when I say any knowledge, like, that includes like text messages? Or
Nobody told me that they were over there.
And when you asked David Grunwald to give you a ride to Eric Almendinger's, your only intent was for you to get a ride to Eric Almendinger's?
Yes.
In other words, did you know that anything bad may happen to David?
I did not.
Did you have any idea in the world that there might have been some kind of dangerous situation brewing there for David?
I did not.
All right. And same question, when you asked David to come back and hang out with you and Eric Almendinger, was it strictly so you could do the kind of things that you'd done on prior occasions?
Yes.
Do you know what this means?
And it's the symbol Crips use.
You have to talk a little bit louder.
It's the symbol that Crips use with their hands.
And what Crips are you referring to?
Gang members.
And why do you know what this means? How do you know what this means?
Eric had brought it along to me. He showed me what it meant.
Eric Almendinger?
Yes, sir.
And does it mean anything in particular, or is this just the sign for that
I
group?
think it's just the sign for the group.
Okay, and do you yourself know who the Crips are?
No, sir.
Okay. You have never done any research into that?
No, sir.
So you don't know if they're a white group, an African-American group, a Latino group? You don't know anything about it?
No, sir.
Now, do you know they're a gang?
Yes, sir.
Do you know where they come from?
I'm going to check all these questions.
This
I mean,
goes,
he doesn't even know.
well, this goes to his,
They have foundation.
understanding and his
As far as the standing
perception.
objection, as far as the relevance of it and the prejudicial effect.
and again, Judge,
I'll
we're
note
not
that.
claiming they're real Crips. We never did, never have, never will be. We are claiming that this is what they did.
But lay a foundation on where you got his information.
Once again, that's going, exactly to what the rule says you can't do.
No, actually, we already got a ruling from the court on this, Judge.
Go ahead, Mr.
Again, going to your perception, you did not do extensive research on the gang, the Crips.
No, sir.
Do you know what state that they come from or where they originated?
No, sir.
You know whether they're black, white, Asian, Latino? Do you know anything about that?
You're not.
And you found out about the C sign from Eric Almendinger?
Yes, sir.
Did you also find out what the color is of the Crip gang?
Yes, sir.
And what color is that?
Color's blue.
Now, you testified already, you had a lot of contact with Eric Almendinger, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you had a lot of discussions with Eric Almendinger, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Did he talk about the Crips?
Objection.
Overruled.
Did he talk about the Crips?
You'd only talk about it like what they do with their hands. In
Say
this,
it again?
he'd talk about what they do with their hands, the C, and the bandanas. He'd wear those.
And was he emulating the Crips? I don't know if you know.
He was pretending to be like one, yes.
Okay. Did you think he was a real Crip gang member?
No, sir.
What type of things was he doing to pretend to be a Crip?
Throwing up the C, wearing bandanas, wearing blue. Talking like he's in a gang. He used to talk like it.
Like slang terms?
Yes.
And when you say the bandana, was it a blue bandana in particular?
Yes, sir.
And was it worn on a certain part of his body?
On his head.
How often would he wear the blue bandana?
He'd wear it throughout the day,
Every day?
almost.
Right. And how about blue clothes? How often would he wear blue clothes?
He had a blue Alaska grown hoodie.
And did he wear it, how often did he wear it?
Every day, I think.
So that was his normal outfit, the blue bandana and the
Yes, sir.
blue hoodie?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And throwing up the C, as they call it, would he do that a lot?
Yes, sir.
Right. And give me some context to that. Is like when he saw you, he'd do it, or when would you see him throwing up the C?
Oh, when you see him taking a picture of himself.
And do you claim any affiliation with any gangs
No, sir.
or the Crip gang?
No, sir.
Now, did you do some of that stuff too?
I did throw up the C and wore a bandana.
All right. And did you wear blue also?
Yes, sir.
All right. So, tell us, does that mean you wanted to be a Crip?
Doesn't mean I wanted to be.
Why did you do those things?
I honestly don't know.
Was it to be cool?
I don't really know.
Were you influenced by your peers to do those things?
No.
No. You decided to do it?
Yes, sir.
But you did not have any ambition to be a gang member, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, were you in some photographs where you and others were throwing up the C?
Yes, sir.
And were you in some photographs where you have a blue bandana and other people have a blue bandana?
Yes,
In
sir.
the photographs?
Yes, sir.
All right. And do you know what the 6-point star is in blue?
I do not.
Now, do you know personally whether Eric Almendinger was researching the Crips?
He might have been. I didn't really watch what he was looking up.
But you had some conversations with him about what it takes to be a Crip, correct?
Yes, sir.
And what did he tell you about what it takes to be a Crip?
Objection, here's that.
That is hearsay.
Well, I think we raised that at the bench, but it goes with the court's previous ruling. And it's not hearsay because we're not trying to prove that he was a Crip. We're never gonna do that in any of the cases or the trials. The probative value of this is, there's a couple of things that were the common denominators for this group: marijuana and the Crip colors and Crip signs and the gang language. I mean, there wasn't much more than that. There was a few other things, but that was the common denominator for the group, so this goes.
We should approach and talk about this.
Well,
Come on up.
and I'd rather, if it's legal argument, Judge, it's very hard to make legal arguments into the small microphone.
I'll have the jury step out for a minute then. Okay, what I need to really know, Mr. Kalachek, is where you're heading with this line of questioning.
Yeah.
As far as the statements he's made concerning himself and others, I just kinda need to know it as an offer of proof before I rule it coming.
Right, and
So,
as to the statements of the other, I guess we'll call them co-defendants, even though the trials are split up, we recognize that there are different categories of statements. In our view, some of the statements are very obvious ones that we can't use. For example, Eric Almendinger's full interview to the full statement to the police. We're not, I don't think we've ever tried to use that statement. Austin Barrett's interview, full interview, and Bradley Renfro's full interview, we're not trying to use those things. We recognize that those statements implicate others, and that's the purpose for the severance, and has brutal implications and all of the above. There are some statements that I think the court has not ruled on yet, and that is, we haven't gotten there yet, and those are the lies to the police. The fact that Eric Almendinger told Sergeant Wegson in the early phases of the investigation that he never saw David Grunwald, that he was drunk as a skunk in Anchorage, those kind of statements. And there were similar lies by this defendant and all the other ones denying any connection to this case. Our position has been, and we provided the case with the court with a lengthy brief, with a lot of, much case law that says that lies are not hearsay, that lies, people's lies are probative as to evidence of their guilt.
That's their guilt singularly and standing alone. My client really didn't make a lot of statements, and he actually acknowledged being in the Bronco the night he was confronted. So my client doesn't have this extensive history of lies.
Well, any statements by Johnson, that's a whole separate ballgame, because we can use any statements against.
I don't disagree with that, but that's not what they're talking about.
Right.
They're talking about inadmissible hearsay.
Ms. Howard even pointed out to the court a case which was the same exact situation. There was testimony from another defendant at a preliminary examination, I believe, or preliminary hearing. It was later utilized in it was basically a lie. It was utilized in the trial of the co-defendant, and the court said that was appropriate. But we're not at that point yet. Those statements obviously.
What are you trying to elicit from this witness?
So from him, as the court remembers from the past trial, there were some discussions between the defendant Almendinger, Eric Almendinger, and David Evans, where Almendinger was spouting off, in addition to, having a gun and waving it around and playing tough guy with the gun. He was also and acting like a wannabe gang member. He was spouting off that to be a Crip, you had to either kill somebody or go to prison. Mr. Evans testified about that in front of the grand jury. And I don't think it's like, we're not trying to show that indeed, if it was for the truth of the matter asserted, we would be showing indeed, to be a Crip, you have to kill somebody or go to prison. We are not trying to prove what the Crips are about or what the initiation process is for a person to become a full-fledged member of the Crips. That would be for the truth of the matter asserted. We are trying to show defendant Almendinger's state of mind, his intent. This was shortly before the murder, where he possessed one of the guns, the .40 caliber. He was acting like a gangster, as were all of them, and he expressed an intent that he expressed the notion he was following the Crips, and he had an interest in this notion that to become a Crip, which he was trying to do sort of in his own way, you had to kill somebody or go to prison. And then that's coupled with the fact that all of them are doing the same stuff. And Defendant Johnson also, we have photographs where he is doing the same exact thing. Nobody here was ignorant to what the C means. All of them knew that the C is the Crip sign. So basically, you know, even if it is hearsay, which I don't think it is, there are hearsay exceptions, then existing mental, emotional, or physical condition, and it talks about a statement of the declarant's then existing state of mind, emotion, sensation, or physical condition, such as intent, plan, motive, design, mental feeling, etc. So this is obviously a statement by Almendinger of his state of mind specifically, or his intent. And again, it's not for the truth of the matter. We're not trying to show what it takes to be a Crip. We're just trying to show that those are the things that was going through his mind before the murder, and we have to show that one of these people, we don't even have to show which one, we have to show one of them killed David Grunwald and the others willfully and with the requisite intent participated or helped in the planning or incited the other guy to do it. So the state has about there are a number of different ways that we could prove these crimes under the accomplice liability theory. Now, the court already has said that, I think the court acknowledged in the order, and I think in our pleadings, we again stressed that it was not our purpose to show that these young white males who live in the Palmer and Wasilla area were truly Crips. That was never our intent. And then when the defense says, well, propensity, well, it's not, because we're not trying to show they were real gang members. They have about as much in common with the Crips as anybody here does, and that is nothing other than they're throwing up the gang signs, and they're trying, they've adopted these things, some of them to be cool, others just to look tougher in the eyes of their peers. But nonetheless, there is no denying that everybody from the group is participating. And we have to show that there was some concert of action, at least that they have to have the common intent. And in this case, the common intent to do a number of things, to assault David Grunwald, to kidnap David Grunwald, to kill David Grunwald. And the way we understood the court's order is that we can get the material in to show the fact that they associated together, they were a cohesive group, and Mr. Evans already testified that they were all good buddies. But there's more to this case than them just being good buddies. They were engaging in similar conduct, such as not going to school, smoking marijuana, and they were also doing the gang stuff. Now, in this case, I think we've all recognized doing the gang stuff means they weren't engaging in real gang activity, which was sanctioned by the Crips, even though we know that there were some other things that we're not talking about in this case that some people from the group did. There was criminal activity. But for purposes of the trial here, we're just trying to show the associations and the state of mind of the group and the intent of the group. And therefore, Almendinger's statement is not for the truth of the matter asserted, because he is telling Mr. Evans what it takes to be a Crip. We're not really trying to prove what it takes to be a Crip. We're just want to show that he harbored this thought, and the other ones, through their actions and through the photographs, had similar notions.
Go ahead.
So that's conformity evidence. This is exactly why, this is very similar to the Linehan case, and their arguments are almost remarkably similar to what was argued in Linehan for why they should play The Last Temptation. And the Court of Appeals clearly said that talking about The Last Temptation was impermissible, and it didn't get overturned for that reason, because they got overturned for another hearsay reason, which and say the hearsay reason it got overturned would be similar to allowing the hearsay that Eric Allmendinger in this trial said to be a member of the Crip, you had to kill somebody, where we're not going to have the right to cross-examine him. And they're trying to use that for his intent. So they are trying to say, they're kind of speaking out both sides of their mouth. They're here saying, we're not bringing in this notion that he said you had to kill somebody to become a member of the Crip, that you had to kill somebody, but it shows his intent. So they are saying, and then they're saying, and let's be clear what they're saying, it's showing his intent to commit the crime of murder. So they are offering it for the truth of the matter that's asserted, that he intended on killing somebody. So when they say that he's bringing this statement in, that to be a member of the Crip, Allmendinger, you had to kill somebody, he is bringing in that for the truth of the matter asserted, that it shows his intent that he wanted to kill David Grunwald. What's interesting about this conversation is, this conversation, by the way, doesn't include my client Dominic Johnson. It was between Mr. Evans and Mr. Allmendinger. My client's not even a part of this conversation. It's tenuous, but it is so prejudicial, and it's actually really not probative of anything. It is inadmissible character evidence because they're basically saying they're wannabe gang members and they're acting in conformity of how we think gang members act. That's what they're trying to do with this. And this is reversible error. Letting this type of stuff in is reversible error. I've objected to it before, I'm going to continue to object to it. This statement that I think he was trying to get out right now, which is the one I expected that he was going to say that Eric said you had to kill somebody to be a member of the Crips, is inadmissible for so many reasons. If they're saying it's to show his intent, then the intent they're talking about is that he intended on killing somebody, and that is for the truth of the matter asserted. And then they're trying to say, because he made the statement to Mr. Evans without my client present, somehow that intent transfers to my client. That's a stretch.
You want to respond?
Well, now I was under the impression we fully briefed this, but
We did.
there were all those cases that also said that gang evidence comes in to show the
No,
associations,
it's not one of those.
especially in accomplice liability
Ninth
cases.
Circuit case.
And it's really, I think, for the truth of the matter asserted, you gotta look at the statement
But once
itself.
again, we've gotten to this issue where they're saying they're not gang members, so it doesn't come in. That's for actual gang members. Those are like Ninth Circuit cases in federal land where they have real gang members, which Mr. Kalachek, through his own acknowledgement, has said, my client actually isn't a gang member.
They're not Crips, Judge. They are an Alaskan gang committing kidnappings and robberies and burglaries.
Again, here's the situation. I'm gonna stand by the order I issued. And I'm just gonna, for the record, I mean, at this point in time, this is kind of where we're at. You know, the defendant in this case, he is the second of 4 individuals to stand trial for the murder of David Grunwald. The state cannot and does not intend to prove which of these 4 individuals actually physically ended David Grunwald's life. Instead, the state intends to show that all 4 individuals worked together to cause David Grunwald's death. 8 of the 9 counts charged in the defendant's case are under a theory of accomplice liability. So the state has to prove the following. It has to prove that some party committed the murder, but also that the defendant intended to promote or facilitate the murder of David Grunwald, acted with the intent that David Grunwald be killed, and aided or abetted the other person in committing the crime. To aid and abet means to help, assist, facilitate the commission of a crime, promote, accomplish thereof, help in advancing or bringing about, or encourage, counsel, or incite as to its commission. Now, the state has asked me to allow evidence that these 4 individuals were acting as quasi-gang members, wannabe gang members. I don't know other way to describe it. I mean, obviously they weren't actual gang members. But the problem with keeping this out is the state also has a theory as to what the motive was to kill this young man. there is really no other motive out there. There's been no evidence that there was a robbery, or that there was a theft, or that this was a revenge killing, or anything. And they have a right to pursue a motive in their case.
Motive's not an element,
No, it's not, but motive is admissible, and it's admissible under 404B.
but you have to have
And
a
it-
very specific motive.
And their motive in this case, and this is the finding I made, is that for some reason, that these individuals, these four men, especially maybe Mr. Allmendinger, maybe he was the lead force, that he wanted to become a gang member, he wanted to prove how tough he was, he wanted to prove himself to the others. I don't know exactly what they're gonna set forth, but I'm allowing it in because it goes to motive. And there is a lack of motive in this case. Nobody understands, no evidence has been presented as to really what is the why. And the state is asserting that the why is that we had these four individuals together that planned this out, maybe spontaneously, maybe it was just that night, but they're gonna put on evidence that there was discussions to do this. And they believe that Allmendinger's statements as to what he had to do to show that he was part of a gang mentality or a gang member was a reason why he did this.
But-
Now, you can argue that that's a stretch, who knows?
But here's-
But it's gonna come in.
I mean, there's text messages, and none of the text messages are gang related.
Well, they did
There's
say in
snake
opening
slang.
statements, and I did read in the pleadings that,
There's juvenile slang.
I don't know.
I don't know if that's a Gucci thing or not, but juveniles use slang.
Let's say nig, homie,
But you're not-
4.0, Thule.
anyway.
I don't think a lot
for
of
the
teenagers
record,
use
and I
that
think
kind
my,
of thing.
I think
more teenagers use that than Mr. Kowchek's aware. But first of all, my client's not using the word nig. I don't think that's in there one time.
No, but Gary Canada is saying gang, gang, gang to Dominic Johnson in one of their conversations. I mean, I know that the
And
defense,
I think my record's clear. The written record is much clearer than me orally presenting it, but it really does go, in my opinion, to some sort of motive that the state is intending to show. And they have a right to show motive. And I believe this is their theory, that this is one of the motives of what happened. If not the only motive, I don't know. We'll see what the evidence proceeds, but I'm gonna let it in for that purpose, and I think my written order was fairly clear.
And once
So-
again, the slang that they're talking about, they haven't even, Thule, that's a slang term used.
As I recall, that came in through the officer. I don't know if he had a list of terminology or something, as I
and
recall.
obviously, Judge, the way been progressing this trial, we haven't even gone into the communications and most of the photographs, so at this point, the
But for
jury,
purposes of what was going through the mind of Eric Allmendinger, whether it was true or not, I do think it has relevance to a potential motive in this case, and so I'm gonna allow it in for that the hearsay statement, so. And on the other hand, his hearsay, his opinion of your client, that's gonna come in too, so. All righty, so we'll bring the jury back in. I'm gonna let you proceed. All right, please be seated, everybody. Go ahead, Mr. Council.
Mr. Evans, so Eric Almeninger did make some statements to you about what it takes to be a crip, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And what did he say?
Objection noted. Go ahead, overruled.
What did he say?
He told me that you have to go to prison or kill somebody to become a crip.
And the blue colors, did you see Devin Peterson wear those blue colors before?
Yes, sir.
And did you see Renfro wear the blue colors before?
Yes, sir.
How about this defendant, Dominic Johnson?
You would wear it sometimes.
Sometimes. How about Austin Barrett? I didn't ask you about him.
Yes, sir.
And how about the bandanas? Was that also everybody or sometimes?
Bradley, Devin, and Austin and Eric had one.
And did the group see Devin as a role model, Devin Peterson, or not?
I'm not totally sure. I mean, he was everybody's favorite.
He was what?
Everybody's favorite.
He was everybody's favorite. And then we talked a little bit about, previously about, I know I asked you questions before, whether anybody was like the boss of the group or anybody was in fear of the other. What was your perception about that?
I object to that. Calls for speculation of how other people felt.
There is speculation, Mr. Council.
Did you ever perceive anybody as being the leader of the group? You yourself, did you perceive anybody being the leader of the group?
No, sir.
And had you seen Eric Almeninger with firearms before?
Only the one time with the 40.
And what were the circumstances of which you saw him with the 40?
No, he just carried it everywhere he went.
And, but you had seen it, obviously, right?
Yes, sir.
And you're saying he carried it to school?
Except for school. He didn't bring it to school.
And so he had a school exception, but otherwise, when he wasn't at school, he always had the 40?
Yes, sir.
And that was the Ruger 40,
Yes, sir.
semi-automatic pistol?
Yes, sir.
And had you handled it before?
I have held it before. I just never shot it.
And any of these other people that we talked about, did they handle that gun
They'd have held it, yes.
in your presence?
Yes, sir.
Like, which other people have held it in your presence?
Devin, Bradley, Austin, and Dominic.
And was this in different locations or at the same locations?
Different locations.
And have you seen people shoot the gun or not?
No, sir.
Now, were you fearful of Eric?
No, sir.
Were you fearful of Devin Peterson?
No, sir.
Were you fearful of any of the people that we've talked about thus far?
No, sir.
And did you consider all of them friends?
I did, yes.
If we can.
Let's vote.
I'm gonna show you a couple of photos here, but first let me get the right ones on there. All right, can we have if we can have the lights, please? Thank you. State's proposed exhibit number 44, do you recognize it as a photograph?
Yes, sir.
All right, and what's depicted in the photograph?
Me, Bradley, Renfro, and Eric Almendinger wearing bandanas and throwing up the sea.
All right, and then you're the one with the cigarette in the photo?
Yes, sir.
And which one is Renfro?
He's the one in the middle,
And which one is Almendinger?
the one to the right.
Let me show you the exact photo, because the screen was a little fuzzy. Maybe you can look at it. You said that everybody has bandanas, but I don't know, does Renfro have a bandana under his hat, or is that just a hat?
I think it's just a hat.
Okay. And so these are the Cs that we were discussing before?
Yes, sir.
And it looks like you and Renfro are doing the C and Almendinger's doing something else.
Yes, sir.
What is he doing?
I'm doing the peace sign.
And what is the word there on the screen? Does that have any significance or not?
And it says A.
Is that like a greeting term?
Yes, sir.
Does it mean anything more than that?
No, sir. Not that I know of.
Turning your attention to state's proposed exhibit number 183, I'm going to give you the hard copy in case you need to look at the details of it. What's depicted in 183?
It's Eric Almendinger wearing a blue bandana along with myself.
And what is Almendinger doing in that one?
He's holding up the C.
And do you know where that photo was taken? As far as the location, or not?
It looks like the camper.
And are you holding up a C there too?
No.
What's that?
No, sir.
Just, oh,
That's somebody else.
somebody else. Oh, is there a third person there also?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is that like a selfie where Eric Almendinger was taking that photograph?
Yes, sir.
And you were in the background and somebody else's hand is in the background?
Yes, sir.
And you believe that was the camper, right?
Yes, sir.
And what is straight cooling with my GC? What does GC stand for?
I really don't know.
Okay. Turning your attention to proposed exhibit number 186. What is depicted in this exhibit?
It's me and Eric Almendinger walking home from school.
And what is Eric Almendinger doing?
He is throwing up the C.
And is he wearing his bandana?
I am not sure. Yes.
What's that?
Yes, sir. It doesn't
Yeah.
show on this one.
All right, and do you have the blue bandana on too?
Yes, sir.
And what does like ye 100 mean?
It's just words.
Any significance at all of those words?
Not really.
100%, does that mean anything in the group's language?
No,
Not to you?
not to me.
Turning your attention to state's proposed exhibit number 40. Do you know who took that photo? Is it a selfie by Almendinger, or did somebody else took the photograph?
I think it was Allmendinger.
And who is throwing up the C in that one?
Allmendinger, Renfro, and myself.
And are you guys trying to look, I mean, the expressions, you're trying to look tough in that photograph? Is that what it is?
I don't think so.
No?
It's
Okay.
just,
Normal expressions? And do you remember, like, whether there were any discussion before, like, this photograph was taken, for example, or not?
no, sir.
No. And when it says cool, what are the words there?
Cooling with my main homies,
And what does that mean to you?
best friends.
And all of you, all the people in this photograph considered themselves to be best friends?
Yes, sir.
Now, you're saying that you did these things, but you were not trying to be a gang member or gangster, is that correct?
Correct.
Right. And you were not present when anything happened to David Grunwald, is that correct?
Correct.
And you didn't know, you didn't have any knowledge anything bad was gonna happen with David, is that correct?
Correct.
Now, I asked you about some communications you had before with some other people. For example, I asked you if you remembered communicating with Dominic Johnson at 9:18 on the 13th of November 2016. And you said you didn't remember, right?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry?
Yes, sir.
Okay, but it's possible that you did, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, do you remember whether he and you, that meaning Dominic Johnson and you, had a phone conversation on November 13th, 2016 at 5:34 Alaska time?
I don't remember.
What's that?
I don't remember.
Okay, so is it possible, if records indicate that you did communicate with Dominic Johnson's phone, is it possible that you did have a conversation on the 13th at 5:34?
It's possible.
Right, now, if it's possible that it happened, that would have been just before David Grunwald picked you up, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and thinking hard about this, if the records show that you had a conversation with Dominic Johnson, what would you guys have been talking about at 5:34 PM on November 13th?
How he's been doing, because we hadn't really talked that much.
You wouldn't remember?
No, sir.
Because, you gave me a lot of details about texting David Grunwald and the reason why you texted him, needing a ride, and this is a question about something that would have happened a few minutes before David picked you up, but you don't recall what discussion you had with this defendant, Dominic Johnson, right before David picked you up?
No, sir.
And I'm not insinuating at what it was, I'm just asking you first, as you sit here today under oath, is your memory jogged at all by me asking you about the exact time and day?
Yeah, I don't remember.
And how about after November 13th, 2016? Did you continue to associate with Dominic Johnson?
Yeah.
And when I
Talking.
say associate, I guess that's a, it could be a vague term or a broad term. Maybe let me break it down. Did you continue to communicate with him?
Yes, sir.
And was that via phone or text or Facebook Messenger? Or what?
Facebook Messenger.
And did you continue, did you see him after November 13th in person or not?
No, sir.
And in your communications with Dominic, was the subject of David Grunwald's disappearance or death ever a subject in those communications or not?
I have no clue.
You don't remember?
No, sir.
And did you continue to communicate with Eric Almendinger after November 13th via phone, but in his case it would have been via the tablet?
I mean, he messaged me on Snapchat, but I don't remember what he said.
Did you, after November 13th, did you ever see Dominic Johnson at Eric Almendinger's house?
No, sir.
Or did you ever have any conversations with Dominic Johnson, for example, on November 18th, 2016, about whether he was going to Eric's house?
I don't recall.
And, okay. So you say, as to conversations between you and this defendant, you don't ever remember talking to him about anything regarding David Grunwald after November 13th?
No, sir.
Now, changing gears a little bit, you said that you kind of bounced around as far as where you lived, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Almendinger's at Faith's house, right?
Yes, sir.
Other places, Jasper House, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, other places too?
My buddy Brian Johnson's house.
Did you ever, did you know Alyssa Bledsoe?
Yes, sir.
And did you know where Alyssa lives or not?
No, sir.
No? I was gonna ask you, did you ever stay at her house?
No, sir.
Or in her camper trailer?
No, sir.
Or in her shed?
No, sir.
Let me give you an opportunity to clear something up. I think in part of your testimony this morning, you said you didn't see Eric Almendinger when you came out of the shower. But then in another part, I think you said that you did see him and talk to him when he came out of the shower. So I want you to think, I know 2 years ago, but I want you to think about this and tell me, do you think you saw him and talked to him after you came out of the shower or not?
I don't think so. Because I know we made food before I got in the shower, too. We went upstairs and had food.
So to the best of your recollection, do you remember seeing him after you took a shower or not?
No, sir.
And then, so then if you don't, then it would have just been the text that we discussed before that you sent to him saying that you were leaving, taking some marijuana and leaving, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, when you were at the Almendinger home, are you saying that you spent the entire time inside the house?
Yes, sir.
Right, so you wouldn't have known if ever anybody had come or gone outside the house on the property, you wouldn't have seen any of that?
No, sir. I was packing up my stuff.
And therefore, you don't have any idea whether David Grunwald did come over or not?
Correct.
And you said already that, do you have any idea when what time he left the house?
No, sir.
Or do you have any idea what time it was the last time you saw him in the house?
It was before I took a shower after I talked to Grandma.
All right,
Um,
but, so let me try to narrow it down. The last time you saw Eric Almendinger, was it right when you finished smoking the bowl of marijuana?
no, it was after we got food upstairs.
Okay, so smoking the bowl of marijuana, getting, what kind of food did you get?
I think we made mac and cheese.
And then did you bring it back downstairs?
We ate it in the kitchen. And then I went downstairs and showered.
And is that the last time you
Yes,
saw
sir.
Eric Almendinger?
Yes, sir.
All right. And tell me, when you guys were eating, did he use his tablet at all when you were eating?
Not that I could recall.
How about when you were downstairs smoking the marijuana? Do you remember him using his tablet at all?
I don't.
All right. And during the time on this particular day, when you were there, and did you see whether he had his gun or where his gun was during that time period?
I did not know where it was.
What? 124. Let me show you state's proposed exhibit number 124. Do you recognize that?
It looks like the 40 he had.
All right, and does that look like Eric Almendinger's waistband?
Yes, sir.
All right. Do you recognize the other gun on the other side of the waistband?
I do not.
But you believe that to be Eric Almendinger's waist
Yes, sir.
and the gun also?
Yes, sir.
Now, is this the way that he normally carried that gun, or did he usually carry it in the back, or did it vary?
That's normally how he carried it.
And those words on there, do they have any significance to you?
No, sir.
No. And while you're holding that, this states exhibit number 3. Does that look like the .40 caliber Ruger that Eric Almendinger had?
Yes, sir.
And likewise, does state's exhibit number 3 appear to be the weapon on the right side of his front waist?
Yes, sir.
And when you're looking at this weapon, state's exhibit number 3, do you notice a slight difference in the coloration of the metal on the slide and on the frame? See how the
Could you flip it over?
Right. See a slight color difference between the frame and the slide?
Yes, sir.
All right. And you also see that on the gun on the right side of the waistband?
Yes, sir.
I move for the admission of number 124.
Can I see it real quick? Okay, objection overruled already.
I want to talk to you a little bit about your Facebook Messenger, and that was a common way for you to communicate, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you communicated with a lot of different friends through Facebook Messenger.
Correct.
And if you don't remember something, let me know, and we have stuff we can refresh your recollection with, and maybe have you review. But the state talked today about you having a really good memory about having a discussion with David Grunwald on Facebook Messenger, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you've actually had multiple opportunities to review your messages with David Grunwald, is that right?
No, I've never looked them over.
You never looked them over? Do you remember testifying at the last trial?
I believe so.
Do you remember if they showed you your messages between David and you at that trial?
Yes, sir.
So you did look them over then?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And they put them on board and had you talk about them, is that right?
They had them in front of me.
Okay, they had them in front of you, where you could read them.
Yes, sir.
And so you've actually read the messages between you and David, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Have you looked at all your messages from back in 2016?
No.
Safe to say you don't even remember everybody you messaged in 2016.
Yes, sir.
How many people do you think you messaged between now and 2016? Hundreds, thousands, at least a few?
A lot.
Okay. You didn't have a car back in 2017, did you?
Yes, sir.
Did you know somebody by the name of Andrew Trout?
Yes, sir.
And on 2016, November 13th, you messaged David Grunwald for a ride, is that right?
Yes, sir.
But you didn't actually want to go to Eric's house first, you wanted to go to Walmart, did you not?
No, he picked me up and we went straight to Eric's house.
But did you want him to take you to Walmart?
No, I don't think so.
If you saw your messages, would that help refresh your recollection?
Yes, sir.
Let's start with page 222 of this Facebook messages, so you can review this. These are some of your Facebook messages. This is who received it, this is who sent it. And I just want you to read through these a little bit and let me know when you're ready to turn to the next page. You had a chance to review that?
Yes, sir.
And do those look like, I might just get back near the mic, okay? Those look like the messages between you and David
Yes, sir.
from November 13th?
Yes, sir.
And you were trying to get over to Walmart, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You wanted to hang out with your friend Brian over there,
Yes, sir.
but basically David let you know he was only given a one-way drive.
Yes, sir.
And he was going in the opposite direction, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Do you know if you, and you know that you're friends with Andrew Trout, is that right?
I know him. He used to work at Walmart, yeah.
Do you know if you ever tried to contact him on that day to try and get a ride over to Walmart?
I did. I did.
About the same time you had contacted David Grunwald, right?
Yes, sir.
Because you're more interested in trying to go to Walmart.
Because my buddy Brian lives over there.
And that's where you're ultimately.
Or he lived over there.
That's where ultimately you were trying to go that day.
Yes, sir.
And safe to say, back then, you didn't have a car, you're always kind of hustling for a ride, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And you're kind of couch surfing back then.
Yes, sir.
And you were asked about some messages between you and Dominic. You haven't ever reviewed those, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
But you have reviewed the messages before today between you and Mr. Grunwald, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And that's why you remember those as well as you do, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you've been asked a lot more questions about that.
Yes, sir.
And at the last trial, you weren't asked any questions about any messages between you and Dominic Johnson, were you?
Yes, sir.
But you were asked a number of questions about the messages between you and David Grunwald, is that right?
That's right.
And that was back in May?
Of this year?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So a lot more fresh in your mind?
Yes, sir.
Is that one of the reasons you remember that better?
Remember what again?
you remember the messages between you and David Grunwald better because.
Because he was actually helping me out with the ride.
Okay. And they were questions you've been asked more about, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Did you even remember that you tried to get Andrew Trout to give you, was it Andrew Trout? I'm sorry. Yes. Until today, and you thought about it, do you even remember that Andrew Trout was somebody you tried to hit up for a ride that day?
Not until today.
And that's because you haven't reviewed all your messages, is that right?
Correct.
Now, David didn't need directions to Eric Allmendinger's house, is that right?
That's correct.
Because he had been there before.
Yes, sir.
And I'm not trying to cast stones at anybody, but safe to say you're kind of a stoner.
Yes, sir.
And you hung out with other people who were stoners, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
One of those people was David Grunwald, was it not?
It was.
And that's something that you and David Grunwald had in common, was that you guys enjoyed smoking marijuana.
Yes, sir.
And Eric Allmendinger's father grew marijuana, is that right?
Yes, sir.
So there was a lot of marijuana at Eric Allmendinger's house, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And one of the things that you like to do when you smoked marijuana was also play video games, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And some of the people you saw over at the house, what kind of video games did you play?
We mostly played Halo.
Halo. That's the game where you are
You're humans fighting aliens.
basically a space marine with a power suit of armor run around.
Correct.
You play any other video games?
Call of Duty.
Call of Duty. Which Call of Duty version were you playing?
I believe it was Black Ops 2.
Black Ops 2. Okay. So you guys like to hang out, play video games, and smoke marijuana, is that right?
That's right.
And David Grunwald came over and enjoyed doing that stuff as well, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And to the best of your recollection, because you were living at the Allmendinger house that fall, you know that David Grunwald came over at least 2 or 3 times, is that right?
That's right.
And that was to hang out, smoke marijuana, play video games.
That's right.
And then you also said you knew Dominic Johnson.
Yes,
Dominic
sir.
had been over there about twice, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Was he about the same amount of times as,
I think it was like one more time than David. Then he
not a
came
whole
over.
lot?
Not a whole lot.
You guys all went to Colony, is that right?
That's right.
And you knew everybody. Do you know if everybody else knew everybody?
I'm not totally sure.
And so Dominic had also been over there to play some video games and smoke some marijuana.
Yes, sir.
How about the neighbor, was it Mr. Ward?
Christian?
Christian Ward?
Yes, sir.
Did he come over, play video games, smoke marijuana?
He'd come over and smoke and watch.
Okay. So, and sometimes when you're playing video games, sometimes you're, got the controllers in your hand and you're playing, and sometimes people just hang out there, watch you play video games and smoke marijuana with you, is that right?
Yes, sir.
But it's just sort of a communal thing that you guys do, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And the game console and the TV were in the camper, is that right?
That's right.
Okay. And so that day when David gave you a ride over there, he didn't need any directions on how to get there, did he at all?
No,
He knew exactly where he was going.
he did.
Now, you've testified at a previous trial.
Yes, sir.
You also testified at grand jury, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And you were asked at grand jury if Dominic had any ambition to be a gang member. Do you remember that?
What was the question?
Whether or not Dominic had any ambition to be a gang member.
And I said no.
And is that still your answer?
Yes, sir.
And that was the truth, right?
That's the truth.
And to the best of your knowledge, Dominic didn't have any ambition to be a gang member, did he?
He did not.
And you didn't have any ambition to be a gang member, is that right?
That's right. I just threw up the signs.
You just threw up the C, right?
Sir.
What's this sign?
Peace.
And if you're a USC fan, it means what? Does it mean victory if you're a USC fan?
I don't know.
Ever see this one, Hook 'em Horns, University of Texas? A bunch of different hand signs out there, is that right?
That's right.
Do kids sometimes throw up hand signs because they think they're cool?
Yes, sir.
Were you throwing it at the sea because you thought it was cool?
Yes, sir.
And it didn't mean you wanted to be a Crip?
No, sir.
And you used to wear a blue bandana, is that right?
That's right.
And you didn't see Dominic wear a blue bandana, did you?
Never.
Not one time.
Not one time.
And you were photographed in the blue bandana at various times?
Yes, sir.
Still didn't want to be a Crip?
No, sir.
Thought it was cool?
Yes, sir.
You talked about the .40 caliber. That was, to the best of your knowledge, that was Eric's gun, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And Eric had it with him most of the time.
Yes, sir.
You were also asked a grand jury if Dominic had any guns that you didn't know of him having any guns, did you?
I didn't think so.
Okay. And that was your answer back at the time of grand jury, is that right?
I believe so, yes.
That's your answer today?
Yes, sir.
That's the truth?
Yes, sir.
You're also asked if the only person with true gang intentions was Eric. Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
What was your answer to that?
It was.
Not anybody else, is that right?
Not anybody else.
And this happened back in, you testified at grand jury in December of 2016, is that right?
On the 8th.
December 8th,
I think so.
2016? You know
Think
the
so.
date, is that right?
I think it was the 8th.
But December 2016,
Yes, sir.
and you think it was December 8th? And things were pretty fresh in your mind then?
Then, yes.
And you talked a lot about Eric's gang involvement, but you were also asked about other people's wannabe gang involvement, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And you were asked specifically about Dominic, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you said, as you did today, that Dominic didn't have any intention of.
That's correct.
David Grunwald was your friend, is that true?
That's very true.
And after this happened and he went missing, you actually were involved in one of the search parties to look for him, is that correct?
That's correct.
I don't have any other questions for you.
I want to clarify a little bit. When you were asked about the question about whether you wanted to go to Walmart, that was earlier in the day. You had actually asked David if he can give you a ride to Walmart, right?
Right.
But he said he couldn't, correct? Okay. So therefore, you settled just to get a ride from him from Pioneer Pizza
To Eric's house.
to Eric's house. So that wasn't your first choice, but that it was your second choice, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, got it. And then, there was this talk about marijuana, smoking. I guess you're aware that marijuana is legal now, right?
Yes, sr.
Okay. And I guess you're aware that the majority of people in Alaska have decided to make it legal, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You follow the news a bit, I see, okay. Now, however, as to the marijuana smoking, you testified that Austin Barrett never intersected with David Grunwald during, correct?
I don't think they've ever met.
Same thing for Bradley Renfro, they never intersected any of this activity you described, right?
Correct.
And the same thing for Devin Peterson, they never intersected,
I think they've seen each other, but they never really talked.
right? And the same thing with Dominic Johnson, they never intersected.
They've seen each other, but never really talked.
Okay. I mean, you're talking about school?
Yeah.
Okay. I was talking more about marijuana smoking, like, there was never an intersection between David Grunwald and any of those other guys, right?
Yes, sir.
Just with you and
Eric,
Aaron?
yes, sir.
Now, Mr. Stoller asked you, like, who did you think really wanted to be a Crip and who was just playing? And I guess you said everybody was just playing except maybe Eric, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, does that mean you thought that Eric would really become accepted by the California Crip gang to be part of their, part of their club?
I would object that because he
What?
doesn't even know where the Crip gang's from.
Well, Mr. Stoller asked that question.
I didn't ask that question.
No, I don't think he asked that question. Well, lay a foundation.
Yeah, I mean, what question did he ask you about your opinion about Eric? The question was he the one that had intentions to be a Crip, right?
Yes, sir.
And you said yes, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, but in your mind, did you think he was really gonna become a Crip?
No.
And, you know, when Mr. Stoller asked you, well, you know, how about the other guys? The answers you gave him are only based on your interaction with the other guys and what you saw, is that correct?
That's correct.
And I imagine you're not with Dominic Johnson 24/7 in 2016, correct?
No, sir.
You're not with Devin Peterson 24/7,
No, sir.
Austin Barrett 24/7.
No, sir.
In fact, some of them, you had very little contact with them in October and November of 2016, right?
I believe so. I hardly talked to them. We were always in person. Like with each other in person.
All right, thank you.
You got some follow-up on that? You were asked today about Facebook messengers with Dominic Johnson, is that right?
Yes, sir.
So you did Facebook message with him, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you Facebook messaged with him a number of times, is that right?
Yes, sir.
You Facebook messaged with him on November 13th, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And how about November 14th? Or how about November 17th?
I guess so,
Can I show you some of your Facebook messages? I'm on page 124.
of course.
This is who's one, who's two. Yeah, Dave,
So it was sent.
Was there a question here, or is this, what does this relate to as far as?
The question was recollection between his contacts between Dominic and him on Facebook
I
Messenger.
think the question was, do you recall how many times you faced Messenger, Dominic Johnson?
Sure. I guess I would ask Mr. Stoller to rephrase the question. In 2016, how many times?
Yes.
All of 2016?
I will get to Mike so I can rephrase the question. David, do you remember how many times you Facebook messaged Dominic Johnson in between basically November 13th and December 2nd on Facebook Messenger?
Quite a few times.
How many times do you think?
At least a full conversation. Asking if he wants to hang out.
So, you talked to him about hanging out, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Talked about rides, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Asked if you were in school, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
That was over the course of several days, was it not?
Yes, sir.
So, you did have some contact with Dominic Johnson through Facebook Messenger, is that right?
Yes, sir.
So you knew him fairly well, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And it's your testimony that he didn't have any gang affiliations or any, you didn't know of him wearing a bandana, is that right?
That's right.
You spent some time around him, is that correct?
That's right.
And you didn't know about him being interested in a gang, is that right?
I did not know that.
Thank you.
But you testified you saw him throw up the sleeve before, correct?
Like once or twice.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, sir, you can step down. Good job, okay? You're excused.
Ilana Peterson is our next witness.
Yes. Please state your full name and spell your first and last name.
Ilana Ray Peterson, ALANAHPETERSON.
Who's your occupation?
Barista.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mrs. Peterson. Let me ask you, how long have you lived in the Mat-Su Valley?
About 5 years.
Where'd you live before that? In the
Anchorage.
state?
Yeah,
Anchorage?
I've been up here since '92.
92. Where'd you live before 92, just out of curiosity?
Arizona,
Arizona. Any other places? Or no?
California, Hawaii.
Number of different places. And your residence where you lived in November of 2016, let's say, which general area is that in? Or what's your street?
My street?
Yeah.
K Lake.
And what's the general location? What is it near, like some landmarks that people would recognize? So, I know you gotta get on the Parks Highway to get there, right?
Fisher's Fuel would be the only thing I could say.
And it's before you get to the Holiday gas station,
After.
after, past Pittman?
Yes.
And so how far do you figure the Holiday gas station is from your place?
It's a mile and a half,
Mile and a half?
because I live at mile 150 is Johnson, and you go down about a half a mile. And it's a mile from there, because that's mile 49
All right.
at the Holiday.
Okay, about how fast do you think, how long would it take you to drive from your house to the Holiday?
5 minutes, maybe?
All right.
Not very long.
And have you ever been to the area where there's a bridge over Little Sioux by Schrock? Have you ever been in that area?
To a river
Where
over
the-
there?
Where the bridge goes across the river? No, just curious to see what,
No.
if you could tell us what how long it would take you to get from your
Oh, I
house
don't
to-
even know where that is.
All right, fair enough. And how long have you lived at that house?
5 years.
Now, let me run some names by you, okay? Devin Peterson.
My son.
And in November of 2016, how old was Devin?
I believe he was 17. He might have been 18 by then. Gosh.
I'll have to pull up my.
Sorry.
I had everybody's birthdays on a file.
His is July. He might have turned 18 by then. I think he was 18 by then.
Was he living in your house?
Yep.
And who else was living in your house?
Me, my 2 stepdaughters, my other son, and my boyfriend.
And was Devin going to school in November of 2016? Or what was he doing in November?
He was supposed to be.
All right, but not all the time?
Nope.
Fair to say that you had some challenges with Devin?
Yeah, I would drive him to all the way to Colony every morning, and he would leave from there.
Did he ever switch schools or not?
We tried, and nobody else would take him.
And when I say challenges, I mean like challenges as a parent, as a disciplinarian, those kind of challenges?
Yes.
Okay. Now, did you get to know some of Devin's friends?
I did,
I'm gonna run some names by you. Austin Barrett,
yes.
did you get to know him
Mm-hmm.
through Devin?
Yes,
And he was Devin's best friend, right?
yes,
And Bradley Renfro, did you get to know him also?
yes,
Was he a friend of Devin's?
yes,
And Eric Almendinger, did you get to know him?
yes,
Was he a friend of
yeah,
Devin's? And Dominic Johnson, did you get to know him?
yes,
Was he a friend of Eric's?
yes.
I mean, of Devin's?
Devon's, yes.
Were they all a pretty close group?
Yeah,
Did you ever see them trying to be people they really weren't?
I don't know, I mean, I guess you could say, yeah, I don't know what you mean by that, I mean,
They ever act like gang members? for
like
example?
wannabes, I would guess you would say, they weren't in a gang.
Okay,
Jackson's noted overruled.
thank you. And what made you think that they were acting like wannabes? Was it their dress or their?
Just, that's the way they spoke and stuff.
And dress also?
Not necessarily,
It was more the lingo,
yeah.
the gang lingo?
Mm-hmm.
Jackson noted overruled.
Did that concern you at all, or no? As a
I
parent?
would just talk to the kids all the time and tell them how ignorant they sounded and tell them how they needed to be in school and do something different with themselves.
Now, let me turn your attention closer to what we're talking about here, November 13th, 2016. I understand you were home on that Sunday, correct?
Yes,
And I understand at some point you went to sleep, correct?
yes,
And was your son Devin home on that day?
yes.
All right, so he had not left the house on that evening?
Not that night, no.
And you had been home that evening?
Yeah,
So you know personally that Devin was?
yes, yes.
Okay. And remember what he was doing or not that evening?
Watching TV or playing on his phone?
It didn't stand, there was no reason for you to really, for that evening to stand out?
No.
But there were some events that occurred during the course of that evening, as far as people coming over your house? correct?
Yes.
And did you wake up during the course of this and observe some things?
I don't remember if I was sleeping, I mean, this was 2 years ago,
Yeah,
or if I was already awake.
all right.
So I don't know if I had woke up or if I was already up.
Well, what do you remember happening?
I just remember kids showing up. And I know it was kind of late because I was wondering why there was people there.
When you say late, what are you talking about?
I don't want to lie to you, I couldn't tell you, but it had to be after 10 o'clock.
Okay. It was dark outside
Yes.
clearly.
Yeah,
And when you say they showed up on foot, in a vehicle?
in a vehicle.
All right. And do you remember what kind of vehicle it was?
I just know it was a truck. I couldn't, it was dark, I didn't see the color, I didn't see the make and model.
Right, now, some people use the word truck to describe a variety of vehicles, like compact pickup trucks, full-size pickup trucks.
It sounded like a big truck.
Right. Could you tell whether it was an SUV or a truck?
I could not tell.
It was dark outside?
It was dark.
No.
And I didn't go outside and like go check stuff out.
Did the truck stop on the road, did it pull into your drive?
It pulled into my driveway, I'm pretty sure.
You have a long driveway?
Semi,
Yeah. And how
it's on a
far,
hill.
how far up the driveway did it come?
Well, I have 2 cars of my own, so it would have probably been behind the cars, so not too far. I mean,
And were you looking through the window? Or did you come outside?
I think I walked outside to see who was pulling in the driveway.
And did Devin also walk outside?
Mhm.
Devin Peterson?
Yes,
And,
that's when he told me that was his friends.
all right, and did you know which friends?
At that time, no.
Okay. So truck is in your driveway, does Devin approach the truck and talk to them, and then he comes back and says it was his friends?
I don't remember.
Mhm. Do you remember if he ever went up to the truck or not?
I don't know, I didn't stay outside. I had went back in.
All right. So tell me in your own words, you seen the truck, it was kinda loud, right? It pulls up into your driveway. You don't know if you're through your window, looking through your window, or you're outside.
No, I was outside.
You're outside. Were you there, did you come outside first, or did Devin come outside first?
I don't know. I don't remember.
All right, and then, so this is where I'm going with this. If you came out to see who the heck was in your driveway at 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock, I'm guessing you wouldn't have just gone straight back in without
No.
determining who was, right?
No, Devin was out there. I don't remember if he came out with me. I really don't remember exactly.
Right,
But I know we were both outside,
okay, and
because I
then,
was wondering who it was, and he told me it was his friends.
but he didn't mention names necessarily.
I don't remember if he said any names, but I know who his friends are. He did, those were the only kids he hung out with.
All right. And did you go back in the house?
Yes, I did.
And did Devin stay out there for a while?
He did stay out there with them for a few minutes, and then
How
came
long do
back
you think
in.
he was out there?
5-10 minutes.
And then what happened? Did he come back in the house?
Mm-hmm.
And what happened with the truck at that point?
The kids left except for Austin. He stayed back. They asked if he could stay the night. I had said no. And they
Oh,
snuck him.
You said they asked.
Or, I'm sorry, Devin and Austin asked if
Okay.
Austin could stay at my home. And I had said no,
Why?
because I was done with these kids being at my house.
All right.
And
So you just said no.
I said no.
And then what, was he standing inside your front room when you said no?
Yes, he was.
And what happened after you said no?
Him and Devin went outside, and then Devin came back in without him.
Did Devin say anything or no?
Devin told me he left.
Now, did Devin look upset after he went outside? by
He
the
did.
truck? Yeah. And did
He
he
did.
tell you he was upset?
He didn't tell me that he was upset, but I saw that he was upset, and I asked him what was going on. And he said nothing. He said nothing, we're just getting into it, or I don't remember exactly what he said, but it wasn't, he wouldn't tell me anything.
All right, but did you?
But he
find
did
out-
say that he was upset with them.
Okay. And you can tell, I mean, you know your son, right?
Yeah, I could tell he was upset.
Okay. And, did you find out later that Austin did stay on your property?
The next morning,
Tell us about that.
the next morning I went out to feed my chickens, and it's cold out, so I could tell there was some movement or whatever around that car that was sitting in my yard. And I went over and I opened the door and he was sleeping in the back of it.
And what kind of car was it?
A Dodge Neon.
And how cold did it get that night?
It was freezing. It was way below zero.
Did it surprise you that Austin Barrett was sleeping in your car?
Yes.
Did he wake up when?
Yeah, I woke him up. I was angry. I don't want you dying outside my house. I'd rather you sleep inside. I mean, if you had nowhere to go, because at this point I'm not knowing what happened, I would have let him stay inside and not allowed him to sleep in a vehicle in the freezing cold.
Did you take him in the house?
After that, yeah, I made him go in.
And what happened after he came in?
Then he just came in, warmed up, ate.
Did he stay there the rest of the time? The rest of the day? This is on the 14th now, we're talking.
Gosh, I don't really remember how long he stayed there. I know he did not stay the night again.
Do you know whether you were working on the 14th?
I think I did.
Yeah. So did you have to leave the house at some
I
point?
did.
Was he still there?
I don't remember if he was still there or not.
Anything unusual about Austin Barrett's behavior when he was in your house?
Paranoid, running to the window every time a car went by, like he was scared of something. And I kept asking, what did you do? Because, you know, people aren't just scared for nothing. And they kept telling me it was nothing.
And then you're not really sure whether you left first or Austin left
I
first?
really don't remember.
Now, did Devin have a vehicle
No,
on November 13th?
no, he did not.
Or in November in general?
No.
Let's talk about that.
He's never had a vehicle.
Did he have a driver's license?
No.
So therefore, you didn't let him use any of your vehicles?
No.
Did he have a phone?
Yes, he did.
And so you don't know, you can't tell me when Austin left or any
I
of that
can't.
stuff? Now, later on, the police came and actually executed a search warrant on your house. I believe it was December 6th of 2016. Were you home or
No.
not? Did you eventually get home?
Yeah.
And were they still there?
Oh.
No. Now, were you made aware that they had seized a number of firearms from your
Yes.
house? Okay. And more specifically, they were seized from a bed, from a backpack that was on a bed, and we have photographs of it. But were you aware that those guns were in your house?
No,
Do you have any gun policy?
I don't allow guns in my home, period. I live in the woods and I don't even own a gun.
And they were in a backpack, and you were at our office earlier today when you came to court, correct?
Yes,
And you had an occasion to look at a backpack?
Yes.
a Red and a gray backpack?
Yes.
Do you remember seeing that backpack in your
No.
house between November 13th, 2016 and December 2nd, 2016?
I don't remember ever seeing that backpack until you showed it to me.
Now, after that truck was in your driveway, do you remember missing any gas cans or plastic gas jugs, whatever we want to call them, gas containers?
No,
No?
we have several,
Yeah.
and I don't make it a habit to go outside and check for gas cans.
And it was already winter and things were covered
Yes.
with snow at that time?
Mm-hmm.
And did you have a layer of snow, like on November 13th? If you remember, did you have a layer of snow? already?
Gosh, I'm pretty sure, but I mean, I don't know. That was like 2 years ago, I don't really remember exactly.
Mm.
I know we had snow that year in November.
Now, I assume that you don't regularly check your son's phone. Did he have a computer too?
My son didn't, his friends did.
But
He just had a phone.
phone. I want to show you some, couple of exhibits.
Can we approach?
Yeah.
Share the microphone with you here and show you some photos. You mentioned that sometimes they acted like wannabes, correct? Showing you state's proposed exhibit number 41. I don't know if you've ever seen this photograph, have you?
When my son had his sentence hearing.
Okay. But you recognize the person in that photograph?
That's
correct?
my son.
Okay. And is he, in this photograph, is he engaging in the kind of activity as you described previously in your testimony of the wannabe
Yes.
kind of activity? All right. And then turning your attention to one more, state's proposed exhibit number 45. Is one of the people in there your son?
Yes,
And who's the other person?
Austin.
Okay. Now, in 41, you notice that your son has two guns in his hands, correct?
I could see one. I mean, I
Yeah.
just can't see it.
All right. He has at least one gun in his
Mhm.
hand. Is this at your house?
No,
No, someplace?
that's not my house.
Okay. You know where that is?
No.
All right. How about number 45? Is that at your house or?
No, there's a hole in the wall. I don't have any holes in my wall.
Okay, good. Thank you for verifying that. Now, you do see in 45 that your son's got a gun in his hand also, is
yes,
that
I do.
correct? All right. And the, what's being portrayed or displayed in this photograph, it looks like he's taking the photo in a mirror of him and Austin, is that correct?
Yes,
Is this again the kind of bravado, the wannabe type behavior that you were
it's ignorant.
describing in your
It's,
prior
yeah, it's
testimony?
ignorant behavior.
Okay. And you were telling us that you did not encourage or condone this type of behavior?
No, not at all.
I'd move for the omission of 41 and 45.
Objection noted, overruled.
Let me just review some of my other notes, see if I need to cover anything else with you. When I asked you before, you know, the relationship between Austin and Devin, you said that at some point Austin and Devin were best friends, is that correct?
Yes.
And you got that impression from just observing their interactions?
No, they said they were best friends.
And so was there like a level of friendship, like for example, I mentioned to you, so we talked about Bradley Renfro, Austin Barrett, Dominic Johnson, Eric Almenager, and your son, right?
Mm-hmm.
Were there different levels of friendship, like, and I'm referring to your son and the relationship he had with the others. Austin was number one, like his best friend?
I believe so.
All right, how about the others, were they also?
Eric was the only one that he would say was not really in the crew or whatever.
How about the other two, Johnson and Renfro, were they?
They were friends.
Okay, good friends,
Mm-hmm. As far as I know, yeah.
but not equally as good as Austin was, or not?
I don't know. I couldn't speculate that.
And as it relates to the case that we're trying here and the issue of David Grunwald's murder, if you had any direct information about the murder, you certainly would have came to
A long time
the
ago.
police or the DA's office.
A
correct?
long time ago, yes.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Go ahead, Mr. Stoll.
How you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing all right.
You were recently convicted of a crime of dishonesty, is that correct?
Yes,
And this office is the one who prosecuted you?
yes,
They're also the ones making the sentencing recommendations?
yes.
I don't have any other questions.
Well, I guess I'd have a number of questions about that. I don't mean to embarrass you regarding that, but, I mean, you know that I supervise the office, right?
Yes.
Okay. Was it any of us that prosecuted the case that Mr. Stoller mentioned?
No,
Okay. I mean, is this the kind of situation where somehow you're giving testimony that to us here that you think would that is not true, that you think might benefit you in some way?
No, not at all.
Or vice versa, do you have such hard feelings toward the Palmer DA's office that you're changing your testimony to get back at us or
No,
be against us?
no, the truth is the truth.
All right, and what Mr. Stoller mentioned, the fact that you're convicted.
That means nothing and
in
has
your
nothing to
mind,
do with
As you
this.
sit here today, did that impact the way
No,
you
it did not.
answered either my questions or his questions?
Nope.
Anything else, Mr. Stoll? Okay, ma'am, you're free to go.
Thank you.
Okay, members of the jury, we're gonna call it a week. We'll go ahead and be excusing you. Report